While the beautiful country was in a storm over their confrontation with the Jekka Group, the Jekka Group itself was steadily progressing as per its agenda. In the Chan country capital, Yang City, inside an ordinary apartment building, Min Xingyao was having breakfast when he spoke to his wife. Lisa, I need to go on a business trip to Monday City in 2 days. Monday City? Haven't there been news reports recently about unrest there? Lisa immediately frowned. Her husband worked as a salesperson in a machinery company, and though their income wasn't much, they managed to get by. Don't believe the propaganda from the Chan country government. The safety and environment there are quite good. While biting into a piece of bread, Min Xingyao explained, on one hand, it's a business need. I have to discuss procurement cooperation with a subsidiary of the Jekka Group. On the other hand, a new ghost house has opened up over there. They say that if you beat it, you get at least $10,000. I'm planning to give it a try. Mom's condition has been dragging on for too long. We need to gather enough money for her treatment as soon as possible. Min Xingyao's tone was heavy. He and his wife were deeply in love, and her parents had always been kind to him. Now, his mother-in-law had developed a tumor 6 months ago, but due to a lack of money, they had been unable to afford the operation, and all they could do was watch as she grew increasingly frail. Seeing this opportunity, he was determined to try it out. $10,000 would be enough to cover his mother-in-law's surgery costs. Can we trust this? Lisa was somewhat skeptical. A ghost house offering $10,000 just for getting through seemed too good to be true. The ghost house is operated by the Jekka Group. Are you worried that they can't afford that amount of money? With just one sentence, Min Xingyao left Lisa speechless. In Chan country, who didn't know the immense wealth of the Jekka Group, far richer than even the Chan country government itself, it was simply unthinkable for the Jekka Group to default on payments with their strength. Nightmare Park will grandly open on August 18th, offering the most realistic and spine-tingling horror scenes. With lifelike humanoids and layers upon layers of mechanisms, it will bring you the ultimate sensory terror experience. Join us now, and you could win rewards just by playing. The minimum prize is $10,000, with up to $1 million up for grabs. Wealth is within your grasp. Come and explore with us. In Jinla country, bordering Chan country, a group of citizens stirred with excitement as this advertisement played on their televisions. $10,000 as a prize. Is that even real? It's certified by the Jekka Group, a big corporation. Tianyuan hair growth liquid is one of their products. They wouldn't deceive people. I remember our country has a visa-free agreement with Chan country. It should be pretty convenient to go there. In no time, many people felt tempted. The GDP per capita in Jinla was just under $2,000, meaning even the lowest prize on offer at the ghost house could represent several years' worth of salary for them. Some of them immediately sprang into action, while others were still watching from the sidelines. Yet even so, the number of interested individuals was not insignificant. Scenes like these were unfolding in many other countries and regions. The Jekka Group bombarded the media with advertisements for Nightmare Park, drawing tourists with the allure of high cash prizes. In Hua country on the Douyu Live platform. Haha! Sister Calm has conquered another horror game. Unbelievable, Sister Calm. When I played this rot game, I kept screaming in fright, but Sister Calm played through it emotionless, straight to the end. She's really badass. When are you going to become the #1 horror streamer, Sister Calm? The chat was bustling, with several thousand live viewers in the streaming room. Thank you for the support, my family. That's it for today's stream. Also, I have an announcement. I'll be a bit missing for a few days. I'm planning to travel to Chan country, and when I come back, I'll have a surprise for you all, said Shen Xueqing as she took off her headset. As a female live streamer on the Douyu platform who mainly played horror games, Shen Xueqing was known not just for her high beauty standards, but for choosing a path different from other female streamers. Instead of attracting viewers with screams and frights, she remained calm and expressionless no matter how terrifying the game or movie. Regardless of the horrors she faced, she never frowned or showed any fear, slowly building her reputation as Sister Calm and attracting a solid following of viewers. Is Sister Calm also going to the opening event of Nightmare Park? Lately, many streamers and bloggers, including some big names, have been invited. Jekka Group really has deep pockets. With the $1 million hype, I wonder if Sister Calm can win it. I think with her skills, she really has a chance. Make sure to edit the video when you're back. I want to see if that so-called world's biggest ghost house is all talk and no show. As discussions among netizens continued, Shun Xueqing turned off the streaming software and stood up from her chair. Shun Xueqing, a longtime horror enthusiast since her youth, had developed an increasingly high threshold for fear. As a grown-up, no horror game, movie, or show could stimulate her senses. When she started streaming, Shun Xueqing had hoped to find new fearsome games and movies through viewer recommendations, rekindling her initial love for terrifying thrills. Unfortunately, she had yet to fulfill this small wish. The world's largest ghost house. I hope it won't let me down, she muttered to herself. Contrary to what the viewers suspected, Shun Xueqing wasn't being paid to promote for the Jekka Group. Her interest in Nightmare Park was pure curiosity, to see if the widely advertised attraction lived up to the hype and genuinely offered substantial substance. If it were those insincere costumes and makeup, the crude environment, and impersonators so fake they couldn't get any faker, even if the other party was the large multinational company Jekka Group, she would still fiercely post a video to rant about it. August 24th, year 24. In Chan Country, Monday City, all the major hotels were filled with tourists, who came with a clear purpose, and that was for the Nightmare Park. Shun Xueqing arrived at the entrance of Nightmare Park early in the morning. A large crowd of tourists and locals had already gathered here, and Shun Xueqing also saw many fellow live streamers and video bloggers, who were invited here by the Jekka Group with payment. Wow, Sister Calm! A small cry of astonishment came, and then Shun Xueqing saw a sweet and adorable-looking young girl covering her mouth, looking at her with an expression of delight. Sister Calm, I'm a fan of yours. Can I take a photo with you? The girl hopped over, her cute apple-shaped face flushed with excitement. Of course, but you can call me Sister Shin. Shun Xueqing noticed many strange looks from the people nearby. Many people in Chan Country understood Chinese and could comprehend the conversation. Okay, Sister Shin, my name is Susu. I was originally traveling in Siam, but when I heard that Nightmare Park was opening here, I decided to come and check it out. Susu was a lively girl who chatted nonstop with Shun Xueqing. Meanwhile, Min Xingyao, who had just finished his work, also rushed over, waiting for the opening of the ghost house. When the time reached 8 o'clock in the morning, Nightmare Park officially opened, and the large group of waiting tourists immediately entered like a tide. And those who truly entered Nightmare Park had their eyes widened by the scene inside. There were many huge buildings, the walls crumbling, with moss and weeds growing in the corners, and some places even had saplings sprouting. The steps at the entrances of the buildings were mostly very worn, some areas even broken, and even before getting close, one could smell a pungent, moldy scent wafting through the air. On the balconies, you could see old cloth banners hanging everywhere, reminiscent of unwashable blood clothes or white mourning garments. When the wind blew, a rustling sound could be heard. This is so exaggerated. The area this occupies must be hundreds of acres, and the atmosphere has been created so well. Susu looked around in surprise, feeling immensely enlightened. Indeed, it's quite something. Excitement flickered in Shun Xueqing's eyes. Just from the appearance, it was clear that a lot of effort had been put into the place. At that moment, a staff member came over to receive them and explain the ghost house's gameplay procedure. Our ghost house is divided into 5 different difficulty levels: normal, hard, nightmare, hell, and unsolvable. The prize money differs for each level. Generally speaking, we recommend clearing the prerequisite levels before challenging the higher difficulty ghost houses. As for the hell and unsolvable level ghost houses, they are open on a limited basis. For instance, today, if someone successfully completes the challenge, they can then challenge these 2 difficulty levels unrestrictedly. A staff member provided a detailed explanation and then led a group of about a dozen people to a ghost house. It was a huge 5-story building. As they approached, they could smell the scent of disinfectant. This ghost house is called Yuanqi Building. In the past, this building served as the Women and Children Hospital, treating numerous pregnant women and delivering loads of newborns. It was then abandoned for unknown reasons, leaving behind only 3 blood handprints. You need to find these 3 blood handprints, make rubbings of them on paper, then bring them to the head office on the top floor to successfully complete the challenge. While speaking, the staff member also handed out a stack of notices, mainly to prevent individuals with heart conditions or sudden illness tendencies from entering, to avoid uncontrollable accidents. Also, these are the immersive AI glasses specially developed by Nightmare Park. When you enter to play, you must not take off these glasses. The staff member took out a pair of glasses, somewhat similar to 3D glasses from a movie theater. These glasses can provide you with a brand new experience. Once you take off the glasses, it's considered a challenge failure, and our staff members will lead you out. The staff member spoke up to this point and shivered involuntarily as he remembered the last time. For training purposes, they were made to experience the ghost house adventure. Let's just say that he had to hold onto the stairs on his way out because he had been so frightened that his hands and feet had gone soft and couldn't muster any strength. I'm a broadcaster, and I heard that your Nightmare Park allows limited filming. Can I bring this portable camera in? Shin Xueqing pointed to the portable camera clipped to her collar. Most ghost houses wouldn't permit filming inside, because once the mystery is lost and the scare points and segments inside the ghost house are known, it would become extremely easy to get through. Of course you can. The staff member confirmed again, emphasizing, our ghost house is very terrifying. You all need to be mentally prepared. Cut the crap. I've been to plenty of ghost houses. I don't believe there's anything that can scare me. A few punks sporting an alternative style sneered. They had come specifically to rake in gold coins. They wouldn't miss out on the chance for a free ride with a reward for getting through worth tens of thousands of US dollars. The staff member gave the group a long look and then took the money for the tickets, handed out the 3D glasses to everyone, and finally produced a key to push open the heavy door. Everyone, please come in. A group of more than a dozen people walked into the ghost house known as Yuanqi Building. It's kind of cold. Su was also in the group, following Shin Xueqing into the ghost house. Just upon entering, she felt a chill invade her body. Little sister, this is just a regular trick of the ghost house. Nothing but the air conditioning turned up high. One of the nearby punks, Pu Changmin, scoffed with a sneer. I don't know what this ghost house was thinking, letting so many people in at once. How is this supposed to scare anyone? Su curled her lip, knowing he wanted to show off in front of her and couldn't be bothered to talk to him. Shin Xueqing didn't converse but rather scanned the Yuanqi Building. At that moment, their group stood in the registration hall on the first floor, which seemed to have been abandoned for many years. The dust and cobwebs inside had already formed their own ecosystem. The door handles were spotted with rust, rotten planks were everywhere, disassembled sickbeds and leftover medical equipment were scattered about, the scent of disinfectant wafting through the air. The light could not penetrate through the glass windows covered in thick dust, leaving the interior very dim and enveloping the environment in an oppressive atmosphere that sent shivers down one's spine. Suddenly, Shin Xueqing felt a vague unease, her sixth sense of being watched surfacing. This feeling had been very sensitive ever since her school days. During class, when a male classmate would sneak glances at her from behind, she would simply turn her head and, more often than not, catch the boy looking at her. Suddenly, Shin Xueqing's gaze drifted, and she focused on the stairs leading to the second floor. At the dim end of the staircase, she saw a silent, twisted shadow standing there. In the darkness, it was unclear, but those eyes filled with resentment and malice made her heart beat faster. Sister Shun, there's a map of the building here. Look, we can go that way. Su tugged at her sleeve. Shin Xueqing was distracted, and when she looked back at the stairs, the twisted shadow had disappeared. Did I see things? That's what Shin Xueqing thought, but she immediately denied it. The resentful eyes had been too memorable. She couldn't have been mistaken. Could it be because of these glasses? Things are getting interesting. Shin Xueqing adjusted the 3D glasses on her nose. Perhaps these glasses could simulate some lifelike yet phantasmal images to the human eye, making one feel as though they were truly in the ghost house, undoubtedly a new kind of sensory stimulation. With such a technological breakthrough, Shun Xueqing had a feeling that here, she would experience a long-missed sense of fear and excitement. Dozens of people in the group did not walk together. Some ascended the stairs on the left, while others took the stairs on the right. "Let's go this way." Shun Xueqing glanced at the floor plan index, then headed up the left staircase. But just as she set foot there, several cries of alarm sounded. In the dim lighting, down the corridor of the second floor, there stood some bizarrely shaped humanoid shadows. Upon closer inspection, they were actually medical anatomical models made of plastic with red muscles and organs painted on the surface. That startled me. Su patted her flat chest, amused by her own scare. This place is pitch dark. They put a human model here to scare people. It seems they've run out of tricks. What's so scary about this? And yet you were just hiding behind me, and now you are the one shaking. The visitors on the second floor joked with each other, laughing and chuckling. With their numbers, they emboldened each other. Plus, their psychological instinct was to know everything they saw was fake, so they were very brave. I still feel something's off. For some reason, Shun Xueqing felt that the eyes of these medical anatomical models possessed a malign presence, as if they were watching her group. Amid the joking of her companions, the group continued forward. Shun Xueqing took out her phone, using the flashlight to slightly illuminate the surroundings. Operating room, doctor's office, nurse's station, dressing room, ultrasound examination room. In the dim light of her phone, Shun Xueqing could see department signs hanging over the doors of several damaged rooms. Rust-stained, but the lettering still discernible. They said to find 3 blood handprints. This place is so big without any hints. Where should we even start looking? Grumbling to herself, Su kicked a discarded can, which rang out crisply in the silent surroundings. This is the Women and Children Hospital. The so-called blood handprints should be related to departments like the infant care room or labor room. Shun Xueqing spoke up, recalling so many horror games she had played before. Many had similar themes. Sister Shun is so clever. To think of a solution that quickly. Let's hurry. Su's eyes lit up, just as she was about to continue. She suddenly saw Shun Xueqing place a finger to her lips. Shush! Su quieted down, puzzled. Suddenly, a tinkling sound echoed. It was the can rolling. Instinctively, everyone looked in the direction of the sound, only to see the can Su had kicked rolling back from the darkness. Who's there? A few cell phones lit up the area, revealing only a medical anatomical model standing in the darkness. Damn! Not another one of these human models. Could there be a real person inside, disguised by the model to scare us? A burly visitor mustered his courage to investigate further and discovered it was indeed just a model, not a person in disguise. Shun Xueqing was also observing, suddenly sensing that something was amiss. Wait, were these anatomical models this close to us before? Shun Xueqing noticed several models that were previously about 20 or 30 meters away. Looking now, the distance had shrunk to just a few meters, and they were positioned differently. Alerted by her, the others unconsciously looked over. In the darkness, these anatomical models cast eerie and bizarre shadows, standing motionlessly in place. Just when everyone thought it was a misunderstanding, a faint cracking noise started. But the sound was not coming from in front of them, but from behind. The group quickly turned around, only to see the burly visitor who'd gone forward for inspection standing in front of another medical anatomical model, whose neck was stiffly turning. Each twist contorted the model's body a bit more, filled with an eerie misalignment. When someone nervously shone a cell phone light over, they saw an utterly terrifying face. The anatomical model, displaying its muscles and internal organs, was now oozing fresh blood from its open cross-section, with the intestines rhythmically moving and the heart thumping, the lungs expanding and contracting. The model at this moment looked as if a living person had been sliced open, incredibly real and horrific. Su's face turned pale, and Shin Xueqing clenched her fists tight, as the pupils of all the visitors rapidly constricted. Not to mention the burly visitor nearly glued to the medical model. He had personally checked it earlier, confirming it was just a regular model. But now, the palm he had placed on the model's abdomen sunk slightly inward, distinctly feeling the slight movement of the intestines, a warm and sticky sensation transmitting through. It was as if he truly stuck his hand into human organs. This vivid sensation, the smell of blood at the tip of his nose, and the eerie friction noise around his ears froze him in place. His eyes wide open, mouth agape, too terrified to make a sound. It hurts so much. A raspy voice full of agony emanated from the model's mouth. It locked onto the burly man, rapidly dragging him into the darkness, leaving behind nothing but his earth-shattering screams. "Mommy!" Su clung tightly to Shin Xueqing's arm, her whole body quivering into a ball like a terrified quail. Before the other visitors could react, that spine-chilling cracking sound echoed once more. This time, the sound came from behind them, from another few medical anatomical models. These models sprawled on the ground, moving their limbs, resembling a giant spider, launching themselves toward the crowd. "A ghost! There's a ghost! Damn it! What are you spacing out for? Run! Woo-woo! Don't chase me!" A group of tourists turned pale with fright. Some of them went weak in the knees and stood rooted to the spot, not reacting at all. Some chose to take off their glasses, intending to quit the game directly, but panicked to discover that the glasses seemed fused to their flesh and could not be removed no matter how hard they tried. Some chose to turn and run like Shin Xueqing. "Hurry!" Dragging Su, Shin Xueqing ran swiftly. Her physical fitness was quite impressive, not just some housebound girl. She had even joined the track and field club in college, and her long legs moved quickly and powerfully. Whoosh! Half a minute later, after turning a corner, Shin Xueqing found an abandoned office and hid inside, shutting the door. Noise came from the hospital corridors, and inside the room, neither Shin Xueqing nor Su dared to breathe heavily. After a while, Su managed to calm her mind a bit and said, trembling, "Sister Shen, did we really encounter a ghost? It must be these glasses doing this." Shin Xueqing pointed at the 3D glasses, her tense nerves causing her to feel fear after a long absence. Yet her face unexpectedly showed a hint of a smile. "Does that mean it's fake?" "It's fake." Shin Xueqing nodded. It was the 21st century after all, and people no longer believed in improbabilities. Upon hearing this, Su felt relieved and carefully peeked outside through the broken part of the door. But that one glance nearly frightened her soul away. She saw an anatomical mannequin spread-eagled, climbing across the ceiling, its vacant, numb eyes still surveilling around as if searching for living people. As it crawled, fresh blood dripped from its body onto the floor, and the smell of blood was unbearably pungent. Su was about to scream on the spot, but fortunately, a hand reached from behind and covered her mouth. When the anatomical mannequin left the corridor, Shin Xueqing finally let go of her hand. "Woo-woo, Sister Shin. This doesn't look fake at all." Su was almost scared witless, her petite face stained with tears, her psychological defenses nearing collapse. That's the cleverness of Nightmare Park. These glasses are quite high-tech. Shin Xueqing's eyes burned with excitement and enthusiasm. This experience in Ghost House made her feel the trip was worthwhile. As far as Shin Xueqing was concerned, these 3D glasses provided terror in visual form, powered by high-intelligence AI simulation, real-time scenario computation, and tailored ghostly actions based on player reactions, making them seem genuinely real. This visual stimulus would consequently trick the brain into mistaking it for a life-threatening signal, causing adrenaline and glucose to rapidly release into the bloodstream, providing energy for fleeing and defense, thus offering an exhilarating experience akin to flying. The human eye is the organ that receives the most external information, and visual stimulation is the most intense. This is much like watching a horror movie. Even if many people know it's not real, they still feel scared and frightened. "Come on, let's get out of here." Shin Xueqing pulled Su, but now Su was clearly too scared to continue. No, Sister Shen, I don't want to play anymore, I want to quit. Susu's head shook like a rattledrum as she reached to take off her glasses. However, she quickly felt a tingling on her scalp because she found she couldn't take off the glasses at all. I can't actually take off these glasses. Susu's mouth gaped open, unbelieving, and she tried forcefully to pull them off, but still couldn't. Detection indicates you are currently within a special dangerous scene. Temporary exit is not possible. Please execute this operation after safety. Just then, a cold voice suddenly sounded in Susu's ears. The glasses even had bone conduction features, leaving her in disbelief. There's a mechanism here. Shun Xueqing checked and found the reason. At the back of these 3D glasses, there were two special magnetic devices that adhered to the skin, possessing a special adhesive quality, making them difficult to dismantle. No one said we couldn't take off the glasses when we came in. Susu was furious, outraged that the glasses had such a capability, which severely tricked consumers. No, they did say it, but you weren't listening carefully then. Shun Xueqing took out a paper, signed at the entrance of Ghost House earlier. It had a line of small text stating that once inside Ghost House, and upon triggering certain special scenarios, the AI glasses could not be removed. At that point, one either waits, allowing the special scenario to pass, or continues the adventure, playing through the Ghost House, or gets attacked by ghosts, and once the player is deemed dead, the glasses can be removed. What kind of shady dealer is this? Such a small line of text. Who could see it clearly? Susu gritted her teeth. Indeed, before experiencing the true terror here, even if she had seen this line, she wouldn't have cared about it. Most people always have a kind of blind confidence in themselves. Susu had not chosen to leave after all, because Shun Xueqing opted to continue the challenge. Leaving Susu alone here at that time seemed chilling to think about. Compelled by necessity, she chose to follow Shun Xueqing. I remember the delivery room is in this direction on the 3rd floor. Shun Xueqing had a good memory. She still recalled the hospital floor guide on the 1st level just seen earlier. Carefully, she led Susu up to the 3rd floor. Fortunately, they didn't encounter those terrifying medical mannequins and managed to ascend to the 3rd floor without incident. The two slowed their pace, trying to avoid any debris on the ground that could make noise as they checked each of the door plaques they passed. This is the maternity ward. Suddenly, Shun Xueqing found the target she had been looking for. She wiped the dust off the door plaque, confirmed that it indeed read delivery room, and gestured to Susu before turning the doorknob. Click, click, click. The noise of the locking mechanism turning wasn't loud, but in the eerie silence, one could hear it very clearly. As the door opened, they saw nothing but dim darkness inside, barely making out an operating table, along with a changing room, washroom, instrument room, and so on. The room was smeared with dry bloodstains everywhere. The ceiling still leaked water, damp and cold, with water droplets dripping down, making a crisp sound upon hitting the ground. The flashlight from the mobile phone flickered within the dark room, casting an unreal feeling. Upon entering this place, Susu got nervous again. She was inherently timid, and the current environment was exceedingly oppressive for her. Susu's expression stiffened awkwardly. She shrank back, moving her feet hesitantly as if about to cry, looking back every few steps. Using the light from her cell phone, Shun Xueqing carefully searched inside the ward and indeed found something. In the washroom, Shun Xueqing discovered a blood handprint on the half-mirror above the wash basin, clearly left by a baby's small hand. Quickly pulling out the white paper issued earlier from her pocket, Shun Xueqing pressed the paper onto it, successfully obtaining an imprint. The sheet of paper exhibited the same blood handprint trace, and Shun Xueqing smelled it. It had a faint scent of blood, uncertain what paint was used, but it looked very real. Shin, Sister Shin. As Shun Xueqing felt a thrill of accomplishment, Susu's terrified scream echoed. Shun Xueqing also heard an abnormal sound, which was coming from the wooden door of the lavatory behind her. Creak. An unsettling creaking noise suddenly arose, echoing far in the quiet surroundings. Shun Xueqing instinctively stopped breathing, hoping that this would prevent disturbing whatever was causing the noise. But unfortunately, it did not work. The noise continued from inside the lavatory cubicle and grew clearer and clearer. If this had been a horror game, Shun Xueqing would have already pushed open the lavatory door without any change in expression. Yet experiencing all of this in person, despite mentally reassuring herself it was all fake, the overwhelmingly realistic sensations were still agitating her innate self-preservation instincts, frantically alerting her brain to run, the farther the better. Everything in front of her felt unervingly real, making it instinctive to forget this was the ghost house, where Shun Xueqing had earlier reassured Su Su that everything was fake. But now she felt as if she truly saw a fierce ghost. This feeling, Shun Xueqing's adrenaline surged, her heart rate escalated to explosion, and a debilitating terror seemed to devour her physical strength. Shun Xueqing didn't try to fatally push open the lavatory door. Instead, she just looked up at the mirror directly facing the lavatory door. Cold sweat trickled from her forehead as Shun Xueqing widened her eyes. Through the mirror, she saw the door being slowly pushed open. A few ghastly pale fingers crept out from the door crack, scratching the door and producing a grating noise like some crawling creature, an eerie chill wafting through. These fingers seemed as if they were about to drill right through the mirror, causing Shun Xueqing's pupils to contract, her mouth to dry and her heart to thump violently, overwhelmed by a sense of panic that sapped her physically and mentally. Shun Xueqing actually felt her legs weaken. She had played countless horror games and watched many horror films, always with a stoic face. But today she couldn't maintain her composure for the first time. Her mouth agape, her body trembling slightly. Move, move, her inner voice screamed, and her instinctive fear told Shun Xueqing that she needed to run, to get as far away as possible from the terrifying presence extending its hand from within the lavatory. But the unseen terror inside the lavatory seemed like a ghostly presence that could instantly kill her, paralyzing her to the spot. As she stood there, simply staring at the mirror, watching as the owner of those fingers pushed the door open. In the darkness, a pair of deeply terrifying, blood-red eyes looked her way. The instant those eyes met hers, Shun Xueqing's scalp turned numb. Her breathing halted, followed by the sensation of a pair of hands landing on her neck. The hands, unlike those of the living, were chillingly cold, with a faint smell of decay. In the darkness, Shun Xueqing could only glimpse a pair of arms covered in mottled bruises grabbing her neck, which began to ache. "Ayaha! Let me go!" Just when Shun Xueqing thought she was going to die, Su Su exploded into action. Somehow overcoming her fear to save her idol, she picked up a piece of debris from the ground and hurled it at the terrifying presence in the darkness. But she missed, failing to hit the target, and instead, she smashed the mirror. The shattered mirror crackled and fell. The bloody handprint on the fragments shattered, and the terrifying presence near Shun Xueqing also stopped moving. Shun Xueqing finally snapped out of it and, driven by peak fear, burst forth with unprecedented potential and started running, pulling Su Su along without a word. However, before leaving, Shun Xueqing couldn't curb her curiosity and couldn't resist looking back toward the restroom. Within the darkness, the sight was not clear, but she could make out a ghostly, pale face with a pair of blood-red eyes staring venomously at the two fleeing from the office. It was just a single glance, but a chill rushed from the soles of her feet to the top of her skull, leaving Shun Xueqing with a deep, lingering fear. The two ran quite a distance in one go, and only after confirming that the terrifying fierce ghost wasn't in pursuit did they stop and gasp for air, hands on their knees. That was a female ghost, right? My heart nearly stopped from fright. Su Su looked horrendous, her face streaked with tears, appearing so about to cry that it tugged at the heartstrings, as she had been crying while running. "I didn't expect it to be that terrifying either," Shun Xueqing said, feeling deeply emotional at this time, knowing in her mind it was fake, yet her natural body reactions, fear, weakness, trembling, frailty, kept sending her brain warnings that this was a real malevolent spirit. After a brief recovery, they slowly made their way to the 4th floor. The baby nursery was on the 4th floor, which Shun Xueqing guessed might be the location of another blood handprint. But when they got there, they found that others had gotten there first. The door to the nursery was tightly closed, with a bowl-sized hole in it, the metal bent inwards like a trumpet. At that moment, continuous screams could be heard coming from inside, the screams of other visitors. "I'm not playing anymore. I want to go home. I want to find my mom. Don't grab me. I give up, sob. I really give up. Amin. Amin has passed out." Su, scared to death, pressed her hand firmly over her mouth upon hearing the screams from inside. Shen Xueqing took Su and hid in the room next door, and after a while, the screams next door finally ceased. Heavy footsteps resonated in the hallway. Shen Xueqing and Su watched through the broken door as a very tall figure slowly walked by, carrying several people. This figure emitted a strong murderous aura, his face covered with an iron mask, holding several people with one hand, while dragging a heavy executioner's sword with the other, sparking against the ground, inspiring awe and fear. The ones he was carrying were the very rowdy non-mainstream hoodlums from before, who had now been frightened into unconsciousness. Finally, he's gone. Several minutes later, seeing no further movement, Shen Xueqing and Su heaved a sigh of relief, sharing a look where both seemed momentarily lost. What they witnessed and heard in this ghost house even made them a bit unsure of the line between illusion and reality. Rising to their feet, they went to the nursery next door, where Shen Xueqing successfully found the mirror and collected another blood handprint. Only the last blood handprint left. Where could it be? After a series of terrifying experiences, Su now just wanted to finish the game quickly and leave this extremely horrifying ghost house. Based on past game experience, if I'm not wrong, the last blood handprint is in the principal's office, which is also our exit from the building, Shen Xueqing said confidently, giving her verdict. So, do we need to go up to the 5th level? Su bit her lip, her voice trembling as she spoke. We'll go together. Shen Xueqing nodded and led Su to the highest level, the 5th level. The building was even more dilapidated here, with tiles cracked on floors and walls, and clinical records and X-rays scattered all around. The air was thick with an ominous scent, and it seemed like a woman's cries could be heard on the wind. No, there really was a woman crying. That infinitely sorrowful, ghostly crying softly wove into their ears. Shen Xueqing and Su immediately thought of the building's name, Yuanqi Building. Upon arriving here, not only Su felt uneasy, but even Shen Xueqing was internally shivering. Just one last step to go. Not wanting to falter at the last hurdle, Shen Xueqing braced herself and made her way to the principal's office. The crying was coming from there. Taking a deep breath, Shen Xueqing slowly pushed open the slightly ajar door of the principal's office. The room inside was in its normal state. Desk, coffee table, computer, all covered with a thick layer of dust. Yet Shen Xueqing's focus wasn't there. Her eyes moved behind the desk. A figure covered in black hair was squatting on the ground, hands covering the face, the crying filled with endless grief and lamentation, gripping the heart with a chilling unease. As the sound of the wind grew stronger, the crying became clearer, and the figure of a female ghost appeared under the dim light. Her complexion was pale, and her hair disheveled, fluttering lightly in the wind like withered twigs. Su and Shen Xueqing's pupils dilated upon seeing the female ghost, as if they had encountered their nemesis. Their nervousness was so acute, they even held their breaths. As the light from the cell phone flickered, the female ghost suddenly moved, appearing to rise from the ground, which frightened Shen Xueqing into hastily covering the light from Su's cell phone to prevent it from shining through. Fortunately, with the disappearance of the light, the female ghost did not initiate an attack but merely squatted down and wept alone, carrying an endless sorrow. Shen Xueqing's gaze searched within the room, but her face showed no joy upon discovering the blood handprint. Because that blood handprint was on the computer screen on a desk, and the crying female ghost was squatting right there. That meant, to lift the impression of this blood handprint, she had to approach the crying female ghost. Shen Xueqing, always bold and known as Sister Calm, now visibly paled at the thought, her hair standing on end. Su secretly tugged at Shen Xueqing's sleeve and shook her head at her, suggesting she give up. Shun Xueqing took several deep breaths, internally battling between retreat and moving forward. Eventually, Shun Xueqing clenched her teeth and made up her mind. She gently patted Su Su's hand, handed her own cell phone to Su Su, whispered a few words, and carefully started walking toward the desk. As she approached, Shun Xueqing felt a thick qi and a bloody smell. Her heart raced, her skin formed fine cold sweat, and her body seemed controlled by an invisible fear, each movement exceptionally slow. If it were not for her extraordinary courage, the current Shun Xueqing would have already retreated in fear back to the entrance. It's all fake. Biting her lips, Shun Xueqing plugged her ears and stepped closer to the desk. At this moment, she was less than half a meter away from the crying female ghost, could clearly see the ghost's horrifyingly contorted form, her long hair touching the ground, and a pair of eyes without pupils that seemed like deep black abysses, not something any human could possess. Shun Xueqing dared not hesitate, taking out a paper and pressing it against the blood handprint on the computer screen. It was successful. Watching the paper getting closer to the blood handprint, Shun Xueqing's eyes lit up with joy. Just one last step, and she could successfully collect 3 blood handprints and complete the challenge. But just then, strands of black hair appeared on Shun Xueqing's arm, wrapping around her hand like thorny iron wire, immobilizing her progress and causing intense pain. Joy instantly turned into horror, and Shun Xueqing turned stiffly to see the crying female ghost's twisted, blurry, dark form standing up. The crying also stopped, a pair of pitch-black eye sockets staring at her, the long hair entangling her arms. Even more terrifying, the dense black hair moved like a swarm of snakes, covering her head. The ghost's pale, twisted face rapidly closed in on her. In an instant, an indescribable, heavy fear enveloped Shun Xueqing, her scalp tightening, a chill spreading from her spine to her neck, electrifying her entire body, pressing down on her, making it hard for her to exert any strength. I can't fall here. Shun Xueqing, seeing the blood handprint so close, suddenly whispered softly, "Mom! Mom!" This whisper, faint as a mosquito buzz, momentarily paused the movements of the crying female ghost. Just as I thought. Shun Xueqing was overjoyed. It was a shot in the dark, based on her experience with horror games and movies. Yuanqi Building required the collection of 3 blood handprints, all left by an infant, and with this grieving ghost, there was a good chance she was the mother mourning her lost child. She tried calling out "Mom" to awaken the maternal love in the ghost. Whether it would work, she wasn't sure, but it seemed to have some effect. But just as Shun Xueqing was about to continue, she suddenly saw another pale ghost face in front of her, its jaw unhinged, its mouth torn to the ears, revealing a mouth full of sharp, dagger-like teeth, about to bite off her head. Shun Xueqing's mouth opened wide, her body freezing as if it had crashed. "Look over here." Suddenly, Su Su's voice came from next door, her hands holding up the cell phone, switching on the flashlight which beamed directly onto the crying female ghost. Upon being hit by the light, the female ghost immediately covered her face with her arms, issuing an angry and spiteful howl. This was the task Shun Xueqing had arranged for Su Su, perhaps thoughtfully planned by the ghost house designer. The crying ghost was highly sensitive to light, giving Shun Xueqing a chance. Taking advantage of the ghost's pause, Shun Xueqing used her last bit of strength to press the paper against the computer screen, successfully lifting the impression of the 3rd blood handprint. At that moment, the extremely angry ghost's black hair had already covered her face and upper body, almost engulfing her entirely. In this critical moment, suddenly there was a snap, and the entire building plunged into darkness. After a few seconds of darkness, blinding lights illuminated the surroundings, and Yuanqi Building's hidden lights turned on, brightly lighting up the building. Originally, Shun Xueqing, who had been too frightened to close her eyes tightly, suddenly felt the restraints on her body disappear, and she inexplicably relaxed. Upon opening her eyes, Shun Xueqing saw that the crying female ghost in front of her had vanished, leaving the office empty except for a very happy Su Su. "Sister Shen, we've cleared the level. Sister Shen is awesome," Sister Calm is awesome. Susu jumped around excitedly on the spot, her face blooming like peach blossoms with joy, and her twin ponytails bouncing happily. Shun Xueqing let out a long sigh, feeling as though she had just been fished out of water, her back soaked with cold sweat. We've cleared it. Shun Xueqing struggled to calm the turmoil in her heart. The experience the ghost house had given her was too terrifying. The moment she was entangled by the crying female ghost, she really thought she was going to die. Sister Shin, you're too fierce. We're the only two who've cleared this building. Susu hugged Shin Xueqing's arm. The place was so horrifying, and yet she somehow muddled through and cleared the level. She felt a sense of pride and joy bubbling up inside her. It was sheer luck. We were just more fortunate. Shun Xueqing took off her 3D glasses and a smile also appeared on her face. Congratulations to both of you for successfully clearing the challenge. Please follow me to exit now. Footsteps approached, and a staff member entered the room, looking at the two women with surprise in his eyes. They, the staff, were well aware of the difficulty and terror of these ghost houses, but they did not expect that two girls would successfully clear one. It was a sight that truly commanded respect. Shun Xueqing followed the staff member out of the Yuanqi building and looked back after exiting the building. The lights inside the building dimmed again. The broken windows swung back and forth in the wind. The dark interior remained impervious to the sun's rays, and a frightening atmosphere pervaded, giving the building the appearance of a sinister ghostly den. Sister Shin, look at them. At that moment, Susu pointed to the side and playfully winked at Shun Xueqing. Shun Xueqing turned her head and saw the players and tourists who had entered the Yuanqi building with them, each one paler than the next, with expressions of people who had not yet recovered their spirits. Some didn't even have the strength to stand up and were being helped out, while others were woozy and had fainted from fright, being carried out on stretchers. As these people looked back at the Yuanqi building, they would shiver occasionally, their eyes full of fear, evidently quite traumatized by the experience. There was also a couple who had just gone in, and at that moment, the girlfriend was furiously scolding, "Chun Huijia, let's break up. You actually ran away and left me alone when we encountered the ghost. Do you have any idea what I went through? I see you for who you are now." Xiao Hui, it wasn't like that. Under those circumstances, I had no other choice. Pa, you're such a jerk. Stop talking. Don't come looking for me ever again. The girl's face was still streaked with fresh tears. She kicked her boyfriend hard and stormed off. Clearly, she had been severely betrayed by her boyfriend inside the Yuanqi building. Otherwise, she wouldn't have broken up with him as soon as she came out. Damn. Does it need to be this exaggerated? What a mess they've been scared into. Is it even playable anymore? Dude, is this ghost house really that scary? It's only been a short time, and you've turned into this. You guys aren't actors hired by the organizers, are you? I'll haunt your ghost. If you don't believe it, go in and try it yourself. If you can walk out without weak knees, I'll call you daddy. Holy mother, I suddenly don't want to play anymore. Hey, beautiful. Can I get a refund for the ticket I just bought? The tourists waiting outside to queue up were thrown into an uproar after seeing the state of this group of visitors. They had never seen a ghost house that could have such an effect, with nearly everyone who went in suffering various post-traumatic symptoms from excessive fright. A bunch of cowards. What's the point of a ghost house if it doesn't scare people? Sell me tickets, 3 of them. I want to play in 3 different ghost houses consecutively. Exactly, haven't you seen that 2 girls over there cleared the level? If even ladies can clear a ghost house, how scary can it really be? It's all just cheap tricks pretending to be supernatural. My heart is as hard as steel. $10,000. I'm going to earn that no matter what. But not everyone was scared, and those young people in search of thrills were only more curious and eager to experience the ghost house for themselves. Young people have always been full of bravado, thinking themselves invincible, completely oblivious to their own limits. Bro, you guys are seriously brave. Susu looked at the boastful youths with a hint of pity in her eyes, giving a thumbs up to the brave soul who dared to purchase 3 tickets, hoping that after they emerged from the ghost house, they would still retain their competitive spirit. Please follow me. Our chairman will personally give you the reward. After resting for a while, the staff led Shin Xueqing and Su Su away from the entrance of the Yuanqi building to the plaza of Nightmare Park. Many shops and stores were nearby, where weary parkgoers could rest, shop, and eat. At the moment, there were only a few people gathered in the plaza who had successfully cleared the game, just like Shin Xueqing. Su Jie, who had personally attended the opening ceremony, was holding several stacks of cash, which caused quite a stir among the onlookers. This was $10,000 after all. Although they had heard about Jekka Group's promotion, seeing the cold hard cash in person was heart-stirring. It's really $10,000, what a windfall. I'm signing up right away. This is like picking up money. So many people tried, but only a few got the money. The difficulty is insane. They really thought it would be easy to win. The spectators below looked on with fervent desire, wishing they could take their place. The reward for clearing the Ghost House Challenge was indeed $10,000. No mere talk. Shin Xueqing was curious about the man before her. Was this really the chairman of the Jekka Group? He looked too young. All 7 of you have courageously cleared the ordinary level Ghost House and will receive $10,000 each. We keep our promises. In addition, you now qualify to challenge the Ghost Houses of Hell Level and Unsolvable Level. If anyone wants to try, you can sign up now. Su Jie handed over the money to the few, saying cheerfully, knowing that with these examples of winners, the haunted houses would attract even more participants. A little financial outlay was nothing. Excuse me, is the reward really $1 million for clearing the unsolvable level Ghost House? Suddenly, a man's voice rang out, and Su Jie couldn't help but look over. Min Xingyao felt a bit anxious. He was well aware of Su Jie's status in East Qin State, and though he was lucky enough to have cleared the challenge and earned $10,000, more money would ensure better treatment for his mother-in-law's tumor. Su Jie smiled lightly and said, "Of course, if you can clear it, $1 million will be paid immediately. Then I want to sign up." Min Xingyao raised his hand, even though he knew the likelihood of success was slim. The ordinary level Ghost House had nearly terrified him to death, and he had only succeeded by chance. The unsolvable level was leagues harder, but even with just a slim probability, he wasn't willing to miss out. "Count me in with $1 million. I'd be rich if I won." A few others nearby also expressed their interest, and Shin Xueqing raised her hand as well, purely out of curiosity about what made this level of Ghost House so terrifying. "I'm not going." Su Su shook her head repeatedly, knowing her limits. Out of the 7 people, 3 chose to attempt the unsolvable level Ghost House, while the remaining 4 were too traumatized to try again. "Take them to the wedding Ghost House," Su Jie instructed the staff, shaking his head with a slight amusement as he watched the group depart, underestimating the competitive spirit of humanity. Well, it would serve as some amusement for the ghost bride, rather than having her be bored alone. About 15 minutes later, the staff drove Shin Xueqing, Min Xingyao, and 1 other person in a beach cart to the unsolvable level Ghost House, the wedding Ghost House. From afar, they could see a vast expanse of interconnected structures, a smaller version of Han Mansion with intricately carved buildings, oozing sophistication and extravagance. 2 majestic stone lions sat on either side of the red-painted gate, lanterns hanging high. The layout here mirrored Han Mansion, a residence specially created by Su Jie for the ghost bride. After putting on the 3D glasses and signing the waiver, those with prior experience moved with ease. To clear the level, find the ghost bride and take her golden hairpin. The staff explained the condition for passing and then pushed open the large door. Once the group entered, they immediately closed it behind them. Bang! Only after the door shut did the group begin to observe their surroundings. Inside, everything was set up like a scene straight out of a period drama, with pavilions, towers, bridges over flowing water, and luxury apparent in every detail. Red lanterns hung all around, and festive ribbons and the character for happiness could be seen everywhere. This decor mustn't have come cheap, Shin Xueqing murmured to herself, contrasting it with the previous experience in the resentful building, which was filled with dilapidation and eeriness. While in this wedding Ghost House, there was a lively, festive atmosphere, without a trace of the macabre or terrifying. "Shall we stick together?" Min Xingyao looked towards the two other visitors who had come in with him. "It's safer to move as a group. My name is Shen Xueqing." Zhang Pei, Min Xingyao. After briefly getting acquainted, the three set off. The two men and one woman walked along a small pebbled path, through the front courtyard garden, and arrived at the middle courtyard. So far, the ghost house didn't seem scary at all, which helped the trio relax a little. The staff mentioned that to pass the challenge, we need to find the ghost bride, and this place is dressed up for a big wedding. Hence, the bride should be in her bridal chamber. In the layouts of ancient wealthy households, the main hall usually lies along the central axis, and residences are more honored on the eastern side. We need to find the hanging flower gate first, which serves as the barrier between the inner and outer court. When they say a well-off lady seldom steps out the main gate or strides beyond the secondary gate, they are referring to this gate. Inside the hanging flower gate is where the true ladies of the house, the young mistresses, and the master reside, while the servants' quarters and activity areas are outside. We're still in the outer court, and it's likely that the bride's chamber is within the inner court. Shen Xueqing determined the direction they should head, as it would be easy to lose one's way in such a large mansion. Zhang Pei and Min Xingyao looked at Shen Xueqing with a touch of admiration. Although she was a young lady, she knew far more than them. The three quickly made a plan and pushed open a door to a room, hoping to find some clues, or even better, a map. Inside the room, it appeared to be a cloakroom, with racks of freshly washed cloth strips and garments hanging. They were layered upon each other, obstructing the view. "This isn't what we're looking for. Let's move on." After a brief inspection, the trio found nothing of note. Just as they were about to leave, dong! A startling drum sound abruptly rose, intermingling with the sound of a bell, striking more than a dozen times in total. "Where is that bell and drum sound coming from?" Min Xingyao touched the back of his head, that bell and drum sound making him feel uneasy. "It's the morning bell and evening drum, coming from the bell and drum tower. It's like a big, dumb clock, meant to tell the time. The number and sequence of the strikes indicate it's dusk now, which is bad." Shen Xueqing also sensed a change in the atmosphere, her expression growing rigid. "What's wrong with dusk? Is there some significance to that time?" Zhang Pei was equally puzzled, unclear on the meaning. Shen Xueqing, somewhat exasperated, explained to them, in ancient times, wedding customs included a morning welcoming and an evening proceeding. The groom would go to the bride's side in the morning to escort her, and the wedding ceremony would be held at dusk. If you split the Chinese character for marriage, it comprises woman and dusk. With dusk upon us, it implies that the wedding ceremony is about to begin and the bride will soon appear. Almost right after Shen Xueqing finished speaking, celebratory sounds of blowing and beating emerged from outside. It was the music of swanas, gongs, and flutes, coupled with the sound of numerous footsteps approaching, as if a large procession was thunderously marching by. The trio inside the room exchanged glances, but in the next moment, there was unrest behind them as well. The previously white cloth strips and garments seemed to become imbued with red as the auspicious time arrived, taking on the hue of fresh blood, utterly eerie and strange. Zhang Pei, who first noticed this anomaly, curiously looked closer, but that single glance was all it took for him to regret it deeply. He saw the blood clothes beginning to flutter as if something within was slipping them on. The spectral yet palpably real limbs slowly extended from the collars, sleeves, and hems, and the garments took on a fuller shape, as though someone was being clothed in them. When Zhang Pei witnessed this scene, it seemed as if the blood clothes noticed his gaze, and their motions of dressing abruptly halted. The next second, without warning, intense pain overwhelmed him. Zhang Pei discovered with horror that his own clothes had turned blood red and were constricting tightly around his body, as if intent on crushing him into pulp. The blood clothes wafted over to him, layer upon layer, each emitting sinister, creepy laughter, swiftly obscuring Zhang Pei's form from sight. "Hurry up and run." Shen Xueqing's heart skipped a beat, and she burst through the main doors, running at breakneck speed. "Wait for me." Min Xingyao nearly peed himself in fear, scrambling to escape from the clothing room. But as soon as they made it outside, both were horrified to discover that the environment was entirely different from when they had arrived. All around them, to the deafening sound of gongs and drums, a cutting cold wind swept through. The once beautiful flora had withered, turned to a barren landscape of silence. The mottled paint peeled from the walls, cracks filled with weeds and moss, as if tentacle-like vines ensnared the twisting trees, slithering through the air. Distant towers loomed, tangled in mist, while somber green candlelight flickered eerily. On the clearing, the scene had transformed entirely. Rows of round tables stretched endlessly, loaded with rich feasts and fine wines, all the delicacies of land and sea. In the distance, footsteps approached incessantly, as if guests drawn to partake in the wedding banquet were preparing to take their seats. But this feast was held for a netherworld marriage, and as for the origins of these guests, that thought sent a shiver down Shen Xueqing's spine. "We absolutely can't stay here." Shen Xueqing's heart tightened, as though a cold serpent had slithered around her neck. Her sweaty palms clenched into fists, unable to stop the shaking of her body as she staggered forward. Min Xingyao was running as well, but as he passed a round table, the delicacies beckoned him. Unable to resist his curiosity, he reached out to touch the food, wanting to verify its reality. However, the moment his hand barely brushed the food, the dishes transformed into venomous insects and snakes, crawling all over his body. "Ah!" Min Xingyao shrieked piercingly, as if truly bitten and torn by venomous creatures. The agonizing pain turned Shen Xueqing's face deathly pale. Having distanced themselves, Shen Xueqing looked back through a thick fog that seemed to have risen from nowhere. She could only make out vague and terrifying figures among the long banquet tables, ghastly, distorted, emitting an air of pure malevolence. These horrifying entities awaited the start of the banquet, and before the true master emerged, none dared so much as touch a chopstick. Not far off, a stage was set, where a troupe was performing a joyous wedding opera. The actors, dressed in lavish costumes, had skin lackluster as the dead, resembling a collection of corpses. By the time Shen Xueqing looked again for Min Xingyao, who'd fled with her, it appeared as though his body had been dismembered and made part of the feast. "Someone's dead. No, no, no. Something's not right. This is all wrong." Shen Xueqing's breath halted, and she froze in terror, ducking into a room for cover. When Shen Xueqing turned around, gasping for air, she noticed the room's bizarre furnishings. Creepy paintings hung on the walls, their twisted, ghostly figures leering. A huge stone bed rested on the left, draped with thick ghost hair, a massive ghost head pillow at its center adorned with a few withered ghost flowers. The room exuded an essence of the eerie and terrifying, sending chills down one's spine. Suddenly, Shen Xueqing felt something stir. She turned and saw a mirror placed upon the desk. In the mirror, a woman sat in front of a dressing table, adorning herself. Her head bore intricate golden hairpins, her body clad in a wedding dress, embodying elegance and grace, except that her face remained obscured by a hazy layer, like a veil of fog. Yet, guided by instinct, Shen Xueqing knew she must be a woman of peerless beauty. Ghost bride. Witnessing the woman in the mirror with her ink-like hair and blood-colored wedding dress adorned with golden hairpins, Shen Xueqing immediately recognized her identity. But as Shen Xueqing gazed upon her, the ghost bride in the mirror slowly turned her head as if she had sensed Shen Xueqing's presence through the glass. Then, the ghost bride's arm reached out of the mirror, extending into the room. "Zhenzi, Zhenzi." Shen Xueqing's eyes widened, remembering the iconic horror movie she had seen. However, the ghost bride in the mirror didn't crawl out with disheveled hair. It would have been quite beneath her, possibly. The hand reached out from the mirror. Its fingertips were delicate and as white as cream, painted with cinnabar patterns, the jade bracelets on her wrist jingling softly. Before she could take a clearer look, the hand suddenly grasped at the air. Shen Xueqing felt as if her neck was being choked from afar, suffocating, unable to breathe. What was worse was that Shen Xueqing found her body starting to move beyond her control, helplessly watching as the ghost bride's eyes in the mirror gazed back at her, cold and lifeless. Just one glance was all it took for Shen Xueqing to see her own reflection in the mirror, immersed in fear, weakness, fury, regret, darkness, and terror, all her negative emotions pulling her rapidly towards the glass. In that instant, panic flooded in like a tide, saturating every part of Shen Xueqing, mind, and body. In the grip of extreme terror, Shen Xueqing's eyes rolled back, and she fainted. Outside, with the demise of the trio, the red lanterns one by one dimmed, and one after another, the corridors and rooms fell into darkness. The woman in the red wedding dress slowly shook her head, muttering a few words. Fainted. Just like that. How boring. When Shen Xueqing woke up again, she found herself on a stretcher, alongside the just-awakened Zhang Pei and Min Xingyao, all three being carried out by the staff. You guys too. Hey, let's not talk about it. I regret my curiosity. Why did I even participate in an unsolvable level ghost house? The three exchanged glances, their eyes filled with intense relief and lingering fear. Their experience today in the wedding ghost house was something they would probably never forget for the rest of their lives, having been psychologically traumatized. Shen Xueqing sighed, thinking of the ghost bride she saw at the end. Her very soul was still trembling. Although the ghost bride looked more beautiful and normal than the other ghosts, she instilled the deepest fear in Shen Xueqing. Even now, her neck still ached at the thought. How are you feeling? Min Xingyao climbed off the stretcher, crouched next to Zhang Pei, and began touching his body. What are you doing? Zhang Pei got goosebumps, a grown man touching him all over. Could it be that Min Xingyao was, I'm checking to see if your body is all right. When I saw those blood clothes pressing on you, I really thought you were dead. Min Xingyao gave an embarrassed smile and retracted his hand, not noticing any injuries on Zhang Pei. You're not hurt either? Shen Xueqing blinked curiously at Min Xingyao, recalling that at one point, she thought she saw Min Xingyao dismembered and served as a snack. I'm fine, just terribly frightened. Now, even the thought of food makes me nauseous. I guess I won't dare to eat anything for a day or two. Min Xingyao's mouth twitched as he spoke, still haunted by the experience. It seems these 3D glasses are more high-tech than we thought, being able to simulate such a realistic situation. Shen Xueqing touched her neck, not sure if it was her imagination, but she felt as if the cold touch of the ghost bride's hand was still lingering on her neck, highlighting the psychosomatic shadow that had terrified her to such an extent. It's amazing that such high technology was developed by a pharmaceutical company. Think about it. It's miraculous. I've decided. Next time I will bring my friends to play, and I want to see them totally embarrassed and in a panic, scared shitless by the ghosts. Zhang Pei also expressed admiration, and although he was the first to drop dead in the unsolvable level ghost house, he had experienced the collapsing sensation of death through mind and body. After this ordeal, a single post in his circle of friends would give him plenty to boast about to colleagues and friends. I don't want to go through it again. Min Xingyao shivered at the memory of the terror he had faced. Places like this can truly be considered a global benchmark for horror ghost houses, an existence that makes other ghost houses pale in comparison, truly worth experiencing. Shen Xueqing's voice was tinged with excitement. Despite just having fainted from fear, it did not prevent her from looking favorably and being satisfied with Nightmare Park. As an avid horror enthusiast, Shen Xueqing considered the Nightmare Park's design to be perfect. With real-time simulation through 3D glasses blurring the line between fake and reality, with ingeniously complex mechanisms, and ghosts played so authentically that it was hard to tell if they were real or not. For horror enthusiasts like Shen Xueqing, such a ghost house was simply paradise. Shen Xueqing believed that once the reputation spread, horror enthusiasts and thrill-seeking youth from all over the globe would flock to the Nightmare Park. She was planning to give it a push by editing and uploading the footage she had taken of her adventurous run, to publicize the Nightmare Park and let more people know about this place. A day passed quickly. On the opening day, the Nightmare Park was teeming with people. At first, some were skeptical and did not quite believe the park's claim to be the biggest and strongest ghost house in the world. But once they had experienced it for themselves, the visitors who emerged from the ghost house, drained of energy, weak in the knees and covered in tear streaks, served as the best advertising. The title of strongest ghost house was indeed well-deserved. In a specially constructed room within the Nightmare Park, hundreds of primordial spirit pearls were neatly arranged, and at this moment, some of the pearls glistened with a faint, cold light, their colors deepening incrementally, absorbing the fear energy of the nearby humans relentlessly. Night fell. After the guests had left, Su Jie appeared at the wedding ghost house, entering the ghost bride's bridal chamber. The bridal chamber was empty. Su Jie directly sat in front of the dressing table. After a short wait, the beautiful figure of Han Ruyan emerged in the mirror and gracefully floated out. "My lady, check out our haul for today." Su Jie took out the storage bag and retrieved a batch of primordial spirit pearls, which had been distributed in the Nightmare Park that day. The pearls that had been placed earlier were white but had now turned as black as ink. This indicated that the primordial spirit pearls were full of fear energy. Normally, a mere 10 primordial spirit pearls were sufficient for an ordinary first-grade fierce ghost to advance. Now Su Jie had dozens of primordial spirit pearls on hand, all brimming with fear energy. In other words, the primordial spirit pearls Su Jie held were enough to allow several first-grade fierce ghosts to advance to second grade in one go. And this was merely the yield of one day at the Nightmare Park. The fear energy generated by visitors in the ghost house, once absorbed by the primordial spirit pearls, became the sustenance for Su Jie's fiercer ghosts. There was such a substantial harvest because there were so many participants. The majority of people entering the ghost house were too scared to stay longer than 10 to 15 minutes. Hence the ghost house operated very efficiently. And these people's emitted fear, owing to the indistinguishable reality and illusion in the ghost house and their fragile bodies encountering fierce ghosts, was even more likely to trigger various inner fears. Therefore, the intensity of emitted fear energy was quite significant. Multiplied by a huge base number, there were plenty of harvests. However, this was not without cost because these fierce ghosts were acting in Blue Star where there was no spirit ring. Su Jie had to use spirit stones to maintain the fierce ghosts' bodies. The expense involved, had Su Jie not made a fortune at Taoist shows before returning to Blue Star, maintaining it day by day, Su Jie feared he would go bankrupt before he could withstand it. The ghost bride saw the primordial spirit pearl Su Jie took out, and a change appeared in her eyes. Her right hand gently covered it, and all the fear energy inside the primordial spirit pearl was absorbed into the body of the ghost bride. The primordial spirit pearl turned white again and could continue to absorb fear energy. These things were similar to power banks and could be used repeatedly. The only downside was that once filled with fear energy, if not absorbed and utilized in time, it was easy to overcharge the primordial spirit pearls, and then they would be scrapped. The color of the blood-colored wedding dress on the ghost bride deepened a bit. The absorption of fear energy was slowly enhancing the ghost bride's strength, and on her path to advancing to 6th grade, she took another small step forward. "I initially said I'd find you more channels to obtain fear energy. What I said, I did. These are the current results. And as we turn our ghost house into a chain, the production speed of primordial spirit pearls will increase daily." Su Jie stroked the ghost bride's jet-black hair, and the ghost bride did not oppose this intimate action. "Husband, is there more?" Looking at Su Jie, the ghost bride opened her red lips with eager anticipation. "That'll have to wait until tomorrow. If we continue at this rate, how long would it take you to advance to 6th grade? Su Jie saw that Han Ruyan's intimacy towards him had deepened further. Indeed, this feeding was quite effective. "Probably only about 3 months. If you give me more primordial spirit pearls, my advancement speed will be even faster." Han Ruyan stated a timeline, her dead-still eyes showing surprise as she looked at Su Jie, seemingly shocked that he could gather so much fear energy through this method. In one day, there were several dozen primordial spirit pearls harvested, and the flow was steady. If this continued for a year, that would be tens of thousands, a number that even a ghost bride would find tempting. If switched to solely slaughtering to collect fear energy, who knows how many people would have to be killed to gather so many primordial spirit pearls. If the Heavenly Soul sect knew this number, they would surely be envious to the point of vomiting blood. They laboriously create slaughter everywhere, farming city folks, enduring all kinds of hardship and toil, and a slight mistake could easily lead to their eradication by the righteous sect. As for Su Jie, running a ghost house was like a landlord collecting rent on schedule. The rent was the fear emotions contributed by the visitors. Then I look forward to your early advancement to 6th grade. Su Jie was excited. A 5th grade ghost bride was already so powerful that a 6th grade ghost bride could probably face Zhou Minzhen head-on, and even defeat him. Oh! Days flew by, and a few days after the opening of Nightmare Park, the number of visitors dropped slightly. That was normal. Around the world, besides its own promotions, Nightmare Park's fame had not really taken off. However, in the following days, those invited bloggers and vloggers gradually released videos about their experiences at Nightmare Park. Along with a lot of word-of-mouth promotion, the name of Nightmare Park became increasingly well-known. Of these experience videos, the hottest was the one released by Shen Xueqing. Douyin, Slomo, Little Broken Sight, and other platforms, one video rapidly climbed to the top of the hot list, drawing a large crowd of onlookers. At Hailan University, Xia Di was a graduate student, and that day, as usual, he was browsing Little Broken Sight in his dormitory when a video title caught his attention. Sister Calm takes you through the whole process. What is the world's strongest ghost house? Nightmare Park, the thrilling place that challenges the human limit of fear. Clickbait. Mumbling to himself, Xia Di still clicked on it. If it's just a bragging blowout, don't expect to take any cute little coins from me. As the video started to play, Shen Xueqing's appearance made Xia Di, an old lecher, brighten his eyes. Xia Di was reluctant to click the top right corner, savoring the video with relish. After a brief introduction, Shen Xueqing officially entered a ghost house called Yuanqi Building. High energy ahead. Watch out for those things that don't look alive. Remember to turn up the volume. And if you have headphones, make sure to wear them for a doubled immersive experience. As bullet comments flew by, Xia Di was skeptical, merely acknowledging that the ghost house's layout was indeed meticulous. Unlike those he had visited before where the props were rough and the makeup tacky, obviously fake, with no sense of horror atmosphere at all. However, soon, when those medical models moved like spiders, their eerie and contorted figures lunged forward, Xia Di's expression was like this. The creaking sound of the medical staff models crawling made one's teeth grate, like hammer blows to the heart chamber, giving Xia Di a feeling of being there in person with the fear. And when Shen Xueqing reached the delivery room, bullet comments once again densely appeared. Ultra-high energy ahead. Bullet screen bodyguard. Bullet screen bodyguard. If you're faint-hearted, it's still not too late to close the video now. At that moment, a burly man who stood at 185 centimeters silently withdrew his feet that were outside the blanket. Same here upstairs, with the holy light of the blanket protecting me. No petty ghost can harm me. Xia Di looked at the barrage of comments and didn't feel he was cowardly at all. He snorted coldly, and to prove his courage, he directly turned off the comments. But the next moment, Xia Di regretted his rashness. As the wooden bathroom door was pushed open, a few ghastly pale fingers emerged from the crack, a pair of resentful, bloodshot eyes stared out, and a faint, deep, eerie moaning sounded as if a fierce ghost was about to crawl out of the screen. Damn! Startled, Xia Di's hand shook and he accidentally flung the mouse away. Damn. Damn it. What the hell is that? It scared the shit out of me. Xia Di's eyes were wide, his heart pounding. He never felt this terrified even while watching horror movies. Old Xia. What the hell are you doing jumping at every little thing? His roommate grumbled with dissatisfaction. Xia Di quickly picked up the mouse, and to toughen up, he decisively sought the company of a few of his friendly roommates to enjoy the show together. Suddenly, the screams went from solo to a chorus, as if they were competing in a tenor singing contest, one cry surpassing the next in volume. When the challenge of Yuanqi Building ended and they entered the wedding ghost house phase, the number of comments exploded. High energy warning ahead. A horror that challenges the physiological limits of humankind. A word of sincere advice. Those who are faint-hearted and have heart conditions should just close the window now. Those who dare to watch until the end are true warriors. I declare, from today onwards, the ghost bride is my wife. Xiadi licked his dry lips, then saw a scene that shocked him. Blood clothes fluttering. A feast of ghosts. Zombies performing operas. Ghost brides in mirrors. These video scenes, with their bizarre and eerie images, hair-raising sound effects, and terrifying ghosts as if ready to emerge from the screen, were like sharp knives piercing the chest, turning the faces of Xiadi and his college friends pale. For some reason, even though the quality of the video shot in the ghost house was certainly not as good as a movie's, the immersive atmosphere of terror almost spilled out from the screen, stirring the emotions of the viewers. To describe it in one sentence, the fierce ghosts in this ghost house just didn't seem like they were acting. Damn, impressive. What kind of nightmare park is this? The atmosphere is just too well crafted. Xiadi finally regained his composure. This was even more thrilling than the first time he watched a horror film. Old Xia, when National Day comes, should we go and have some fun together? Just watching the video is so exciting. I can't imagine how awesome it would be to experience it in person. At that moment, a roommate suggested, and Xiadi was instantly energized. Great idea. Let's give it a try. I want to see if those ghost houses can scare me. A 6-foot-tall guy. Xiadi patted his chest, stood up and said, "Wait for me. I need to use the bathroom. Then I'll come back and we can plan the departure time." It was because he had watched the video for too long and had been quite scared that he suddenly felt an urgent need to pee. However, as he approached the bathroom door, the image of those ghastly pale fingers in the toilet flashed in Xiadi's mind involuntarily, sending a shiver through his body. Staring at the slightly ajar bathroom door, his steps suddenly faltered. "Haha, old Xia, you're supposed to be a tough guy, and you're too scared to even go to the bathroom." The roommates immediately started to mock him without mercy. "You'll see when you go to the bathroom." Xiadi's face turned red, and he quickly ran into the bathroom. Oh, beautiful country. Michelangelo was a horror film enthusiast, and he was initially skeptical when he saw the video on Twitter. After all, he had been to haunted houses before, even some of the top 10 haunted houses in the world, and he hadn't found anything particularly impressive. But as the video played, his mouth just couldn't close. "Oh my God, what is this? How did they do it? Are 3D glasses already this amazing?" The sudden appearance of a medical body model made Kulin, who was drinking coffee, spray it all over his computer screen. Not caring about his new computer, Kulin quickly wiped off the screen and watched unblinkingly, his emotions rising and falling with the video. When various fierce ghosts made their appearances, and the horror completely exploded, Kulin was all tensed up, not even daring to breathe deeply. Especially when the wedding ghost house appeared at the end, he felt an urgent need to pee, his heart jumping into his throat. Is this Eastern-style horror? Turning a wedding into a horror-theme netherworld marriage, let me check. Wow, so this is what it's about. It's completely different from our blood and gore here. This is much more terrifying than watching a movie. It's amazing. After watching the half-hour video, Kulin's arms were covered with goosebumps, and he had truly realized something. It wasn't that haunted houses weren't scary. It was that the haunted houses he'd been to were just rubbish. I must go to Nightmare Park. Kulin jumped up excitedly. For a horror enthusiast, a place like Nightmare Park was a must-visit destination in life. Oh! Similar scenes occurred all over the world as videos about Nightmare Park went viral, garnering many views and likes. Because the content was so exciting and terrifying, bloggers organized and found that there were nearly 20 different haunted houses in Nightmare Park, each unique. The video with the highest popularity, filmed by Shen Xueqing, went viral with over 100 million views on the web, boosting Shen Xueqing's Weibo followers by 5 million overnight. Along with Nightmare Park, the image of the ghost bride also became famous. This breathtakingly beautiful female ghost, although she only appeared for a few seconds and her face was not clear, left a deep impression with her figure, demeanor, and terrifying abilities, thus attracting a large following. After this explosive promotion, Nightmare Park truly made a name for itself worldwide, becoming outlandishly popular and the first choice for those wanting to experience a haunted house. So, after a brief dip in attendance, the visitor numbers at Nightmare Park once again surged to new peaks. The daily stream of visitors eager to experience the horror of the haunted houses was endless, with the number of daily visitors climbing steadily, and the number of primordial spirit pearls they produced grew more and more. The booming phenomenon of Nightmare Park attracted more and more tourists. As a result, the tourism industry of the Mande region reaped tremendous benefits, basking in economic prosperity. Half a month later, Nightmare Park, White Yabo walked through this recently internet-famous and must-visit terrifying ghost house. White Yabo, from the beautiful country, was an employee of the Microsoft company in Asia-Pacific, and at the same time he was a CIA intelligence collector. Apart from collecting intelligence through various espionage methods, CIA agents are also placed within many foreign companies, maintaining a legitimate identity to better conceal their intelligence-gathering activities. This place is really huge. White Yabo looked at Nightmare Park, this terror-themed ghost house that already occupied hundreds of acres, with thousands more awaiting development. If it were all built up, it would be an incredibly spectacular sight, to the point where even Disney's theme parks would pale in comparison. After passing the security check, White successfully entered the park. The dense flow of people inside gave him a small shock. It was hard to imagine seeing this in a poor and weak country. Haha, Jamie, Loon, Vermo, Dudley. Let's compete and see who can win the challenge medal. Lavinia says she likes brave men. I must succeed in the challenges and show her my courage. I want to record my adventurous pose to show my friends back home what a real man looks like. Among these tourists, White saw many blonde and blue-eyed tourists from Europe and America, loudly taking pictures and videos. Compared to East Asia, people from Europe and America were more enthusiastic about all kinds of extreme sports, which explained why such sports were so popular there. The emergence of the Nightmare Ghost House perfectly satisfied these people's competitive desires. I hope this mission goes smoothly. White followed the tourists around the park, but in truth, he was observing secretly, often deliberately wandering to more secluded areas with a small device, scanning around away from the cameras. This time at Nightmare Park, White had two missions. One was assigned by the CIA, which required him to come here and do some scouting, to see if the JECA group, under the guise of building Nightmare Park, was secretly constructing any military facilities. The other task was a requirement from Microsoft, asking him to go to the Nightmare Ghost House and experience the 3D glasses inside to see if they were as miraculous as others claimed. These 3D glasses had been hyped on the internet to an incredible extent, allegedly boasting ultra-realistic real-time AI simulation, which intrigued all the tech giants, especially since Microsoft's recent introduction of the HL2 smart glasses had just hit the market. This product, featuring mixed augmented reality, allows users to click, swipe, and drag by waving their arms and fingers while wearing the smart glasses, using the same principle as a smartphone. It's claimed to be able to replace smartphones in the future and become a personal information terminal for humanity. Yet, no sooner had Microsoft's HL2 smart glasses been launched than the overwhelming promotion of Nightmare Park began, with continuous praise for the 3D smart glasses in the ghost house. Thus, White was also arranged to come over to verify their authenticity. After some inspection, White found no traces of military facilities here. Are the people up top nuts, who would put a military base in a place with so much foot traffic? Do they want to leak more secrets, or what? White muttered to himself, yet he didn't consider that if fierce ghosts were deemed a biological weapon, then Nightmare Park really could count as a military base. While pondering, White walked over to the square of Nightmare Park, wanting to buy a cup of coffee but got distracted by the bustling noise. Does anyone want to team up for Resentful Spirit Mansion? We need someone who runs fast. Screamers who frighten themselves and others need not apply. Soul Desire House Ghost House Challenge recruitment over here. If you have enough courage, come and join us at Lanyao Studio. Over at Dark Castle, we've got veterans guiding the way. Our leader has been through 5 ordinary-level ghost houses and 1 hard-level ghost house challenge. In the spirit of cooperative success, we are now selecting suitable partners to take on the challenges. Lamenting Wilderness, due to challenge requirements, we need a person under 1.6 meters tall, male preferred. If you meet the criteria, come and sign up. We're offering a reward of 500 Hua Yuan, and you must obey instructions inside the ghost house. Death Maze. Are there any experts out there wanting to take on the Death Maze challenge? I have a lot of experience with this level, 300 Hua Yuan per attempt, and I can accompany experienced challengers as a team. White curiously looked over and saw groups of men and women holding signs with the names of ghost houses on them, recruiting team members as if they were gearing up for a gaming raid. I never realized people actually treated this as a business. White was inwardly astounded. He had only heard about it on the internet. To earn the challenge bonuses offered by Jekka Group, many people formed teams spontaneously, venturing into the ghost houses to take on the challenges. Though the success rate was low and each visit to a ghost house was different, unlike games where past experience could be followed, yet there were still many who were drawn to the challenge. This was largely due to the enticing rewards offered by Jekka Company. The ordinary level ghost house offered a reward of 10,000 in prize money, equivalent to an ordinary person's annual salary. As for the hard level, a successful challenge could yield a reward of 50,000 US, and so far only 3 people had succeeded. No one had yet succeeded in the nightmare level challenges since the park's opening half a month ago. No one had claimed the prize of 100,000 US. Because of these high rewards, professional challenge teams had emerged in Nightmare Park. The prize money also drew more tourists, each hoping to be the lucky one. Many people are blindly confident about themselves. Some even plan how they'll spend their lottery winnings before they've won a single dime. Walking out of the plaza, White chose a haunted house named Blood Castle. After half an hour of queuing, he successfully followed a group of tourists, put on 3D glasses, and entered. Is this environment real, or is it rendered by the 3D glasses? As soon as White entered the haunted house, he was immediately shocked. The castle was quite large, featuring the style of a European castle, with tiny windows through which only a few beams of light could penetrate, casting shadows on the decrepit furniture. The interior of the castle was dilapidated, the walls mottled, and the furniture so old and musty it seemed like it might collapse at any moment. In various corners, there were piles of miscellaneous objects, old-fashioned oil lamps hung on the walls, as well as some ancient paintings. Most of the portraits had faded, and the blurred faces in the paintings seemed to twist slightly under the oil lamp's glow, as if they were staring at the visitors, exuding a sinister light. Amazing! The setup of this environment is just terrific. Just like what's said online, the atmosphere is explosive. If I bump into a ghost later, watch how I'll play tricks on it. Next to White, one tourist after another exclaimed as if they had never seen anything like this before. Woo woo! Suddenly, a gust of wind passed, and the windows rattled. The room was filled with the sound of men and women talking, bickering, and crying. But when one approached the source of the sounds, they discovered there was no one there, just paintings hanging on the walls. A chill rose up the tourists' spines, and the more faint-hearted started hugging their arms and shivering. White was shocked. Having earned his place at Microsoft through genuine talent and ability, he knew the value of what he was witnessing. If it were indeed a real-time computation by the 3D glasses, with glasses simulating a quasi-real visual experience, coupled with real-time sound effects transmitted through bone conduction, then Jekka Company, the master of such technology, undoubtedly possessed a technological capability that surpassed Microsoft's smart glasses. Such super-realistic AI computation could easily generate a trillion-dollar market. Bang! Suddenly, the carefully advancing group let out a collective scream of panic. They had arrived at a place resembling a slaughterhouse, with the pungent smell of blood hitting their nostrils. Before their eyes, a fat butcher, large and robust, holding a huge cleaver, was chopping human bodies on a cutting board. He was dismembering them. In the kitchen's large pot, a bubbling, boiling soup containing fingers and hair occasionally surfacing, stirred the senses. Several dogs as large as calves prowled under the table, licking up the scraps of flesh and splinters of bone that had fallen on the floor. Above, on the ceiling, bodies stripped bare were hung upside down by hooks, like fattened pigs ready for slaughter, which caused onlookers to break out in a cold sweat and their complexions to change drastically. Living people, food. The green-eyed fat butcher, holding the cleaver, approached with a sinister laugh while the fierce dogs, baring their teeth, rushed toward them with wild barks. A number of tourist players were petrified with fear. Some screamed, some wet their pants, and others turned and ran. And as the ferocious dogs pounced, the panic reached its zenith. Many tourists, who had earlier confidently boasted about completing the challenge, were now trembling, like lambs awaiting slaughter, with their vulnerability and fear laid bare for all to see. White saw the black youth who had previously been boasting about toying with fierce ghosts, caught by the fat butcher and hoisted one-handed, a large hook piercing through his shoulder blade and suspending him mid-air, leaving him to struggle, beg and cry for mercy. This is fake. This has to be fake, White assured himself internally, but seeing the tourists being pulled down and incessantly screaming in pain from the dog's bites, his heart convulsed violently, and his psychological defenses were eroded as he began to step backward. No matter how much his mind told him it was not real, his body was desperately honest. People believe what they see, and his eyes were convincing him that everything was indeed real. I have to escape. I need to get out of here. Damn, this doesn't look fake at all. Fear continued to grow within him, and between the choice of fleeing or staying, White ultimately decided that it was better to run. But his hesitation had cost him. It was now too late to run. The fat butcher, wearing an apron soaked with foul-smelling fresh blood, wielded a shiny, massive cleaver and swung it down towards White's head. He must dodge. Utilizing his hands and feet, tapping into all his strength, White narrowly avoided the cleaver. His skills from the CIA training hadn't left him. Phew! But before White could even catch his breath, the butcher's large hand seized his throat with a grip like a vice, and the cleaver plunged towards his head. White's face went pale as if drained of all blood, and his eyes, wide with terror, filled with horror. In the next moment, everything went black before White's eyes. Damn! This is for real! Right before losing consciousness, this last thought flashed through White's mind, and then he knew nothing more. Temasek, the Microsoft Asia-Pacific Research Group, is located here, a research institution built with $1 billion, having a research and development team of over 3,000 people. At this moment, in the research group, the president of Microsoft Asia-Pacific, Dallas Lynch, was inspecting the research center and asked, "Rolf, are there still no results from the JECA Group's 3D glasses?" "President, things are a bit unexpected." Chief Technical Officer Rolf, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, looked scholarly. "Unexpected in what way?" Dallas slightly furrowed his brows and said, "The headquarters in Beautiful Country is already urging us to uncover the secrets of JECA Company's 3D glasses. Ever since Nightmare Park was created, Microsoft had noticed the 3D glasses therein. They obtained several pairs through special channels for research, aiming to decipher their secrets. These 3D glasses have no technological content, just ordinary smart glasses with a bone conduction system, integrated with Bluetooth and communication, but nothing much remarkable. In fact, I even found familiar assembly traces in some places, much like those produced by contract factories in Hua Country." Rolf spread his hands in a gesture of helplessness. "What, are you sure?" Dallas was stunned. Although he had never personally visited Nightmare Park, some former employees who had been there claimed emphatically that the 3D glasses contained high technology capable of simulating extremely realistic visual scenes. "I vouch for my personal integrity and 30 years of experience in the industry, and I take responsibility for every word I say." Rolf nodded, indicating that this was indeed his judgment. "Hold on a moment." Dallas frowned and then made a phone call. Shortly after, an employee appeared here, none other than White, who had returned from Nightmare Park. "This is White. He personally investigated Nightmare Park." After introducing him, Dallas directly asked, "White, Tell us everything you saw in Nightmare Park. When I woke up, I was already in the pavilion outside the ghost house. White recounted his experience at Nightmare Park, of course, omitting the part about working for the CIA. After speaking, White emphasized, Nightmare Park's 3D glasses integrate ultra-high information technology and computation technology, capable of conducting such complex computations and AI integration in such small glasses. There must be multiple world-leading technologies involved. White's assertion was so firm that Dallas subconsciously nodded, agreeing with him. This is the research data from our teardown test of the 3D glasses. You can see that it's just an ordinary smart glass. Rolf looked exasperated as he threw out the evidence, indicating that he absolutely could not have made a mistake. These data, after reviewing it, White's mind felt overwhelmed. Such data support could not possibly meet the requirements of what he experienced and observed at Nightmare Park. Then where could the problem lie? It's impossible that White and the other investigators made a mistake all at once. Dallas spoke gravely, wanting to understand the crux of the issue. Perhaps in these glasses there's technology we don't yet know about, such as quantum cloud transfer or something, with big data processed in the background, and the glasses merely acting as an interface. Maybe they have a mature quantum computer? Such a quantum computer could definitely fulfill the needs for real-time AI simulation, couldn't it? White made a bold conjecture. If this were true, it would also be very significant for the CIA, and thus they would need to pay even more attention to the Jekka Group. Rolf was startled and thought carefully, unable to refute. I don't know if this futuristic technology you're talking about is feasible, but with our current level of technology, we cannot detect it. And in his heart, Rolf was still mostly incredulous. What quantum transmission and quantum computers from a pharmaceutical company, and one that sells shampoo, could they possibly invent such super technology? Such super technology, without years of investment and development, generations of iterative improvements, how could it suddenly emerge without a hint of it heard around the world? It seems, to find the real answers, we must have a talk with the Jekka company. Dallas stroked his chin. As a globally renowned tech giant, Microsoft's current main business includes gaming, cloud computing, intelligent RVAD, operating systems, and office software, nearly reaching the market ceiling in these areas. That is to say, the market for these businesses is only so big, and they still face fierce competition from other tech giants, making it very tough to carve out more market share. Smart glasses represent a new competitive track, and although their own HL2 glasses had mediocre sales, mainly because the technology was still immature and their price as high as $20,000 to $30,000. But if they could acquire the technology of Jekka Group's 3D glasses, possessing that kind of super-realistic visual experience, they would be able to carve out a vast blue ocean market in this entirely new track, a multi-trillion-dollar supermarket. Monday City, headquarters of Jekka Company. Lu Yingying found Su Jie to report an important piece of news. Su Jie, the president of Microsoft Asia Pacific, wants to visit you personally. When Lu Yingying spoke, her tone was calm and steady, having mastered her composure even when facing a visit from a globally renowned tech giant. Let him come up to the guest room. Su Jie waved his hand, guessing the visitor's intentions. Jekka Company, if it were related to pharmaceuticals, they might have dealings, but with a tech giant like Microsoft, there had been absolutely no contact before. Soon, inside the guest room, Lu Yingying entered with a blonde, blue-eyed foreigner. Mr. Su, I am Dallas, the president of Microsoft Asia Pacific. I apologize for this sudden visit and any inconvenience caused. Dallas greeted him fluently in Hua Country's language. As the president of the Asia Pacific region, Hua Country was one of Microsoft's most important markets, and anyone sitting in this position spoke fluent Hua Country's language. Please sit. Extending his hand to a smiling face, Su Jie stood up and shook hands with him amicably. Lu Yingying timely brought over some tea, and the two sat face to face. Mr. Su, you really are young and successful. At your young age, you've already established such a substantial enterprise. When I was your age, I was busy running around looking for a suitable job every day. Dallas said cheerfully, his demeanor very friendly. Of course, Dallas's flattery wasn't hollow. Despite having checked the information, Su Jie's youth was indeed impressive. Typically, the image people have of major entrepreneurs is that of middle-aged or older individuals. Like Su Jie, who at his youthful age, in his 20s, had become the controller of a global pharmaceutical giant, truly challenged people's perceptions. Su Jie took a sip from his teacup and said, "President Dallas, you're too polite. I have only achieved a little, not enough to be considered young and successful." The corners of Dallas's mouth twitched slightly. To own a company like JECA, with annual revenues in the hundreds of billions of US dollars and call it a small achievement, how could other small and medium enterprises survive? After exchanging a few more courtesies, Dallas, who was Caucasian and disliked beating around the bush, straightened up and said, "Mr. Su, the reason for our visit is actually to ask for something. Please speak. I'm quite curious about your intentions too," Su Jie said, looking at him, waiting for what he had to say next. "Here's the thing. Our Microsoft company would like to form a strategic partnership with JECA Company regarding smart glasses." Dallas stated his purpose, which was also the real reason why he had come to see Su Jie, in search of new business opportunities. Su Jie paused for a moment and asked dubiously, "What smart glasses?" "Mr. Su, I mean the 3D glasses you use in Nightmare Park. They contain extremely high levels of technology, capable of real-time AI-based processing of scenes. Not only are the visual effects realistic, the audio transmission is clear, and the dynamic movement is seamlessly coordinated. Such technology impresses us deeply. Therefore, we came to seek collaboration. Our Microsoft company occupies half of the global market share with our latest HL2 glasses. Additionally, our company has well-established online and offline channels which facilitate easy global distribution, whether in promotion or sales. In terms of management, JECA Company would provide technological support while our Microsoft company would handle the actual operations. Both parties would establish a new company. We are willing to invest $12 billion US dollars. You wouldn't need to invest any money, only the technology. We would own 70% of the shares. What do you think?" Dallas clearly stated his proposal while bringing forth his cooperative plan. Now Su Jie understood the misunderstanding. The other party mistook the 3D glasses from Nightmare Park Ghost House as some high-tech invention. In reality, those devices were merely manufactured by an ordinary factory and their realistic effects in the Nightmare Park weren't due to the 3D glasses. Instead, it was because the fierce ghosts were real, and the visitors saw genuine ghosts, formations, and some illusion arrays. It was normal for them to think mistakenly. Compared to the mysterious occurrences of fierce ghosts in the world, people would naturally think it was some groundbreaking technology developed by JECA Company. "I apologize, President Dallas, but we cannot agree to this partnership. The smart glasses technology you mentioned is not for sale." Su Jie shook his head. He couldn't agree to this partnership even if he wanted to. After all, he couldn't just explain about the fierce ghosts. "Is it the share ratio you're unsatisfied with? We can negotiate that slowly. We can increase our investment, but the share ratio is difficult to change. We need to hold the controlling stake in the new company to enhance its stock price." Dallas thought Su Jie's refusal was due to the financial offer not being sufficient, because JECA Group was also known for its deep pockets. "It's not about the money, President Dallas. This partnership is simply not possible. You should give up. If it's not about money, what if we help convince your military to drop their actions against you, to have the beautiful country relinquish their moves against you?" Dallas pondered for a while, then suddenly threw out a startling suggestion. Hearing Dallas's words, Su Jie paused in his movements, looking quite surprised at him. Seeing this expression on Su Jie's face, Dallas smiled and said, "Our Microsoft company does have some clout in political circles. With a minor share of benefits allocated, we are largely confident in persuading those high-level politicians to forego initiating military action in East Chin State." Dallas appeared very confident. Microsoft's main products nowadays are cloud computing and smart devices, mainly targeting corporate clients, and they have a massive number of enterprise customers all over the world. And for these customers, naturally, interacting with government levels is unavoidable. The profits from government projects are extremely lucrative. In this process, Microsoft had accumulated a substantial amount of network resources. Not to mention, a tech giant like Microsoft would have its respective interest appeals and government spokespersons. The essence of capitalism. Politicians also need to serve capital. The influence of Microsoft in the politics of the beautiful country is undeniably strong. Hearing the firm promise from him, Su Jie finally shook his head and declined. It's not that I don't trust President Dallas's promises, but regarding the cooperation on smart glasses, they truly are our non-sale items. There's no room for negotiation on this matter. Dallas frowned. Su Jie's stance was too firm. There were no discussions about shares distribution, no talks about capital input, clearly showing he did not want to cooperate with the outside world. Although previously he had heard of JECA Group's reputation for acting alone, it was only upon direct confrontation that Dallas realized the truth of those claims. Mr. Su, to be honest, your current situation is extremely perilous. If you cannot seek external mediation to resolve this crisis, I fear a total disaster is imminent, Dallas said earnestly, re-emphasizing his company's influence. Now, the only one with the capability and desire to help you is our Microsoft company. Mutual benefit and cooperation is the normal state of development in modern society. Your problem only needs some of the benefits from Tianyuan hair growth liquid to be distributed, and we at Microsoft guarantee that we will make the beautiful country's government call off their targeting of you. Should I take this as a threat? Su Jie's smile slowly faded. If he wanted to allocate some benefits of the Tianyuan hair growth liquid, he definitely didn't need the Microsoft group to play the mediator. No, I don't mean that at all. Our Microsoft company conducts legitimate business. We are not a military complex. We do not need to provoke wars everywhere to reap benefits. Dallas hurried to clarify. Dallas felt a chill in his heart. The intelligence he had gathered mentioned not only the various conflicts between JECA Company and the beautiful country but also the man's character. Absolutely ruthless. If he offended him here, Dallas feared he might not leave Monday City alive. Maintaining composure, Su Jie picked up a cup of tea and said lightly, "In that case, President Dallas, please return. This is a dispute between me, Aster Pharmaceutical, and the beautiful country." Dallas, well-versed in Hua country customs, understood this meant it was time to leave, so he regretfully stood up. "Mr. Su, I hope there's a chance for cooperation in the future." Dallas expressed his hope. "I hope so," Su Jie replied. After walking out of JECA Group, Dallas's tightly drawn face gradually darkened. Coming here full of confidence, he did not expect to be directly rejected. After Microsoft Group became a multinational giant, very few companies dared to disrespect Microsoft like this. Looking at the bustling streets of Monday City, Dallas felt somewhat regretful. What a pity. You had the opportunity but couldn't seize it yourself. Soon, we'll only be able to obtain what we want from the remains of JECA Group. Once JECA Company is dissected by the beautiful country, the items that couldn't be bought today with their influence Microsoft could also purchase from the military of the beautiful country. However, by then, they would have to face competition from other tech giants. Better start preparing early. I'll contact Congressman James when I get back to ensure we get the juiciest piece of meat after the war. Dallas muttered to himself, thinking about how to secure the distribution of benefits after the war, mostly requiring Microsoft Group to make some contributions during the war to ensure they aren't excluded. Throughout, Dallas was fully convinced that the JECA Group possessed advanced smart glasses technology, not knowing it was all a misunderstanding. Oh! In the office, Lu Yingying gently massaged Su Jie's shoulders and whispered, "Su Jie, the proposal from Microsoft Company. Don't trust the words of capital. Even if we agreed to cooperate with them, they could turn on us at any moment, not to mention, we're challenging their hegemony, having offended the beautiful country so many times. They won't let go easily." Su Jie lay back on the couch and rested with his eyes closed, entirely unaffected by the olive branch thrown by Microsoft Group. To truly believe a wolf would turn vegetarian was to be truly foolish. Capital chases profits. If betraying JECA Group could bring greater benefits, they would do so ruthlessly. Besides, it wasn't as if Su Jie actually possessed any smart glasses technology, and even if he did, he would never cooperate with Microsoft Group. Recently, the first batch of station troops from Japan has arrived near Yang City in Chan Country. These soldiers mainly come from the 13th Brigade and 1st Airborne Regiment. Currently, 2,000 personnel have arrived ahead via air transport, with the heavy equipment still being transferred, including an aviation mixed group they're preparing to mobilize that is also undergoing transit and readiness checks at an airport controlled by the Chan Country Government Army. Additionally, our reconnaissance intelligence has found these soldiers undergoing mountain and jungle combat integration training, adapting to the local climate and environment. Lu Yingying mentioned another matter regarding intelligence about the enemy's defenses. Su Jie raised his eyebrows and sneered, so eager to fight on their master's behalf, deploying their elite forces already. Then we must give them a surprise. The main mobile combat forces of Japan's ground self-defense force consist of 9 divisions and 8 brigades, including logistics troops, with a total active duty force of nearly 200,000. These 8 brigades are joint operation units formed by Japan's self-defense force, modeled after the organizational structure of Hua Country and the Beautiful Country, possessing strong independent operation and special operation capabilities. The transferred 13th Brigade has a force of about 3,600 personnel. The 1st Airborne Regiment, the only airborne unit of Japan's ground self-defense force, was established in 1955. Together with the 1st Water and Land Mobile Corps, they form the core of Japan's special operations, with a total force of about 1,900 personnel, under the Japan Army Central Mobile Command. As for the aviation mixed group, it primarily comprises aviation regiments, air early warning control units, and high-altitude artillery groups, and includes several squadrons of fighter jets like F-15J and F-15DJ, as well as transport and armed helicopters such as Chinooks, Cobras, and Apaches, having around 1,500 personnel. With several naval ships deployed from Sakura Garden and accompanying the Beautiful Country's oceanic escort fleets patrolling in Bangladesh, the operations involve sea, land, and air forces. No wonder that guy from Microsoft in Dallas was so confident. It seems he had received a tip-off beforehand. Su Jie opened his eyes, and this war, in contrast to the last one where the Beautiful Country was careless and underestimated the enemy, the other side will definitely be more cautious. Perhaps for the 8-nation group, as long as they advance step by step, they can squeeze JECA group. After all, in terms of war potential, how could JECA group possibly be a match for the 8-nation group? Not only has Japan deployed its military, but they've also offered to train soldiers for Chan Country and provided the Chan Country government with a $20 billion loan. Lu Yingying clenched her fist, deeply dissatisfied with Japan. They want to make their presence felt here in Southeast Asia. They don't realize their own strength, wanting to bite off more than they can chew, risking breaking their own teeth. Su Jie chuckled. Japan is over 4,000 kilometers away from Chan Country by a direct route, and even farther if traveling by sea. The opponent has come a long way. Just a simple cut-off in their logistics, and their soldiers would be at a loss. Does the Beautiful Country have plans for their logistics? Su Jie asked, knowing that logistics are crucial in modern warfare, a fact understood by anyone who has been educated. Yes, the Beautiful Country has already announced in the news that they will mobilize various overseas military bases and coordinate with other members of the 8-nation group to provide logistics support to Japan, which will then be handed over to the Chan Country Government Army, Lu Yingying reported, confident in the Beautiful Country's extensive global bases and powerful fleet to ensure a robust logistics supply. Are other countries taking any action? Su Jie pulled Lu Yingying into his arms, his hands beginning to wander. With a faint blush on her face, Lu Yingying continued, the Beautiful Country has announced an increase in counterterrorism patrols and training in the Asia-Pacific region. Besides the Beautiful Country and Japan, the other 6 countries of the 8-nation group have not deployed troops to Chan Country, merely sending small escort ships to flaunt their presence alongside the Beautiful Country's escort fleet. The countries in Chan Country are mostly small and militarily weak. Although they would accommodate the Beautiful Country, they are entirely different from countries like Japan, which are deeply controlled by the Beautiful Country. They possess considerable autonomy and would not wade into muddy waters unless the beautiful country offers substantial benefits. Even the beautiful country isn't stepping directly into the fray, yet Japan is active, truly a loyal dog. Su Jie didn't know what the beautiful country had promised Japan to make it lead the charge, but he had to admire the beautiful country's skills in handling their dogs. Without entering the fray themselves, they still had such a loyal dog baring its teeth and challenging Jekka Group. These guys who live comfortably might still think they're the big boss in Asia. Su Jie thought about it, his face speechless. Japan once briefly assumed the lead in Asia, but then the big boss position caught fire, grilling them severely and nearly costing them their lives. But having been powerful in the past, Japan most likely still aspires to be the leading power in Asia, seeking to flaunt its strength in the Asia-Pacific region through military conflicts with the Jekka Group. The beautiful country, leading this dog, may also fear the dog biting back, so by pitting it against Jekka Group, they can both sharpen and wear out the dog's teeth and energy. In that case, we too should upgrade our military capabilities in response, even though the new equipment, needing training and integration, might not be used in this war, Su Jie said as he stroked Lu Yingying's smooth long hair. I remember that Russia will soon be hosting an international air show. Yingying, take a team there to discuss new arms trade deals. Lu Yingying nodded obediently and then felt Su Jie's playful hand, her face growing even more flushed. Wait, this is an office. Doesn't that make it more thrilling? In the midst of Lu Yingying's mild protest and coy reprimand, the office was filled with an intimate atmosphere. Russia, Rukovsky City. The biennial International Air Show opened as scheduled once again. Arms enterprises from various countries showcased their latest products here, including all kinds of aviation equipment, airplane models of various types, and actual aircraft samples. Besides aviation products, there were also all sorts of weaponry like guns, tanks, ships, and so on. They were all looking for prospective customers to fulfill arms orders. The air show has evolved into a large-scale international trade fair, similar to an auto show. It's mainly for showcasing a country's military strength and capabilities, with various physical exhibits and lively flight performances to attract others to observe and negotiate. The only difference is that an auto show exhibits a company's image, while the air show displays a nation's image and power. September 3rd. The second day of the air show's opening, when many tourists were present and the atmosphere was bustling. Crack! A luxurious motorcade arrived at the air show. Lu Yingying stepped out of the car energetically. Accompanied by several Russian officials, she led a group of sharply dressed elites into the air exhibition. Many tourists and military procurement agents from other countries frequently looked over curiously. Some recognized the Russian officials accompanying her, holding not-so-low positions. Among them, one with a beard was none other than Ivanov, the head of Russia's military trade agency, causing many onlookers to be secretly astonished. Director Ivanov, which models of fighter jets do you sell? Lu Yingying, dressed in a professional suit and looking immaculate and capable, stood her ground even in the face of the head of Russian military foreign trade. She was the one spending money after all, and the customer is king. Miss Lu, our current fighter jets for export mainly include the Su-30, Su-35, and MiG-29. The Su-30 and Su-35 are our country's current main heavy fighters. One is twin-seat, the other is single-seat, and both are equipped with thrust vector engines. The former emphasizes dual use for air-to-air and air-to-ground combat, while the Su-35 is a supermaneuverable multi-role fighter. The MiG-29 is a medium fighter, relatively affordable and cost-effective. Ivanov immediately perked up, giving Lu Yingying an enthusiastic rundown, with the translator barely keeping up with his pace. Arms trade has always been one of the most profitable industries in the world, not only with huge profit margins but also generating long-lasting returns. Therefore, it is often mentioned in the same breath as drug trafficking and smuggling, referred to as the world's three most profitable industries. And fighter jets, as the pinnacle of industry, are frighteningly expensive, easily costing tens to hundreds of millions of US dollars. Last time Russia had cooperated with Jekka Company, selling them artillery, rocket launchers, armed helicopters, armored vehicles, tanks, and more, earning a hefty sum for Russia. Now, seeing the major customer Jekka company coming over again, and knowing the current situation faced by the Jekka Group, they were extremely enthusiastic, aware that this was another big deal knocking at their door. Lu Yingying nodded, then returned to her team to consult with several military experts she had brought along. These were all retired senior military officers from various countries, re-employed by the Jekka Group due to various real-world difficulties, and now their families were living in the Mande region, bound to Jekka Group's ship, as it were. Miss Lu, considering all factors, the MiG-29 has short legs, its combat radius is too small. If it took off from our Mande region, it would be difficult to threaten the southern prime areas controlled by the Chan Country government army, said one military expert in a low voice, crossing off the infamous short-legged MiG-29 from consideration. Chan Country is shaped like a diamond, stretching 2,000 kilometers from north to south and over 900 kilometers from east to west. Considering the MiG-29's range is insufficient to threaten the Chan Country government army's heartland, it was definitely not an option. The Su-35 is good, but it's too expensive and too delicate, beyond our own industry's capability to properly maintain and service. Another military expert added, ruling out the priciest Su-35. In terms of best value for money, the multi-role Su-30 is the most suitable for us. After some discussion, the Su-30 stood out as the preferred choice of fighter jet. Lu Yingying took note and then continued her visit accompanied by Ivanov. With Lu Yingying's arrival, and especially with Ivanov personally accompanying her, all attending military enterprises with discerning eyes began to inquire and investigate, quickly understanding her identity. Lu Yingying's past wasn't much talked about, just an ordinary undergraduate who had worked in finance and real estate. Now, though, it was different. She represented the Jekka Group. Nowadays, who didn't know that the Jekka Group was wealthy? Otherwise, why would the United States be so keenly targeting them, if not for envy at Jekka Group's huge profits? After understanding her background and identity, these people's eyes lit up, and the heads of various military enterprises eagerly pushed their way forward, warmly introducing their businesses to Lu Yingying. Those rushing to approach Lu Yingying, apart from some more neutral countries, included many member states from Europe, such as the UK, Germany, France, and others. They all swarmed forward as if on fire, eager to snatch up the order. These paupers, do they not have any pride left of us Westerners, to actually go lick the boots of Jekka Group? Disgraceful, utterly disgraceful. Not far away, Dixon, an official from the beautiful country delegation, had a face as dark as a pot's bottom. He had come over with a stunt flight team, and what he witnessed made his blood pressure soar. As an ally of the beautiful country, knowing well that the beautiful country was preparing to take action against Jekka Group, they still went ahead to sell arms to the other side, utterly losing the face of European gentlemen. If Dixon hadn't been mindful of the occasion, he would have burst into a torrent of curses. "Hey, Mr. Dixon, it seems your power of persuasion is not strong enough." Next to Dixon stood Chao Shanmu, an official from the Hua country delegation. The two were old partners and often met at various airshows. As he talked, Chao Shanmu glanced at Lu Yingying out of the corner of his eye, filled with emotion. As for the situation of Jekka Group, his superiors had already conducted multiple investigations. Chao Shanmu also knew about the financial power of Jekka Group. If he weren't worried about causing an international dispute, he would have taken his own Huachi military over there already. However, the arms trade to some extent is linked with political deals. With the relationship between Hua Country and Jekka Company being somewhat sensitive and Su Jie's background being what it was, along with the border it shared with Chan Country. If this arms deal were made, it would be deliberately misinterpreted by the whole Western Bloc, and they would collectively condemn, leaving no chance to clear their name even if they jumped into the Yellow River. A bunch of fools blinded by money, only understanding to earn short-term profits. No wonder they've lost the position of world hegemony. Not like our country, able to stand where we are today because of our unity. Dixon mocked coldly and contemptuously, looking down upon those Europeans who only recognized money. "Cough, cough, Dixon. Why don't you take another good look?" Chao Shanmu, struggling to restrain his laughter with a twitching mouth, pointed towards Lu Yingying, his face full of mocking jest. Dixon was startled, took off his glasses to wipe them, and after putting them back on to take another look at Lu Yingying, he nearly had a hypertensive crisis, his face turning shades of purple and green, because at Lu Yingying's side, Dixon saw the all-too-familiar military enterprises of the beautiful country. Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, General Dynamics, crowding in front of Lu Yingying, incessantly showcasing their products, hoping to draw business. Miss Lu, Lockheed Martin is truly the world's #1 aerospace company. If you are interested in procurement, I will try to persuade my country to allow it. General Dynamics is the frontrunner in ground vehicles. We have various types of military armored vehicles that can meet combat needs in different terrains and environments. Boeing Company is the largest aerospace company in the world and a leading manufacturer of both commercial and military aircraft, with customers in over 150 countries and regions. If Miss Lu is interested in procurement, we can absolutely provide you with value for money service. These companies were jostling in front of Lu Yingying, outbidding each other, strongly recommending their own products. As for the conflict between JECA Company and the beautiful country, what did that have to do with them, the arms dealers? There's a saying that you're not a real international arms dealer if you don't sell arms to your own country. Of course, their willingness to sell didn't mean they'd get approval from Congress. That was a different matter altogether. Regardless, they made their stance clear. JECA Company was so wealthy, with a market value not showing off because it wasn't listed, but in terms of net profits, it ranked among the top few in the world. It would be quite inappropriate not to introduce themselves and seek business from such an oil-rich company. Damn! A bunch of utterly shameless bastards, traitors, the termites of the United States. I'm truly ashamed of them. I'll certainly impeach them with the president when I get back. Dixon could no longer hold back and began to curse out loud. Chow Shanmu watched the farce, chuckling to himself, knowing this joke would bring down the house when shared with his colleagues back home. Lu Yingying, oblivious to the small stir her presence had caused, browsed around the airshow, lavishly purchasing various kinds of arms based on military experts' recommendations, much to the delight of the arms dealers, including Ivanov. Especially today's biggest winner, Russia clinched an arms deal worth $7 billion in preliminary negotiations, totaling 1/7 of their annual arms export quota. This deal wasn't just about the price of combat aircraft and weapons. It included ground support equipment, spare engines, ground crew and pilot training, software, and other related support. As for the subsequent logistical maintenance and periodic repairs and upgrades, that was yet another considerable expense. The money for this had to be paid out periodically, and the additional revenue generated by the maintenance and part replacement of a fighter jet over its service life far exceeded the jet's initial cost. A small country normally would neither have the qualification nor the financial means to purchase such a significant amount of arms. Apart from Russia, other arms dealers also had their share of the pie, making JECA Company the biggest cash buyer of this Russian airshow, attracting envious glances from many. Recently, news has leaked that the JECA Group is actively pushing forward with arms sale negotiations with Russia, expecting to acquire dozens of Su-30 fighter jets and multiple air defense missile interception systems, with military sales reaching up to $7 billion. September 5th, an ordinary day, when a piece of news was disclosed by the Daily Mail. This news didn't seem very eye-catching. Aside from military enthusiasts, not many ordinary people paid attention to it. But the appearance of the JECA Group's name in the news sparked quite a bit of curiosity. The impression JECA Group usually gives is more of a shampoo-selling company. How could it be related to arms trade? Before the public could figure it out, the beautiful country took a stand, issuing a protest statement. At the news conference, the White House spokesperson, microphone in hand, declared vehemently, "This is an inhumane arms sale agreement." Knowing full well that JECA Company is engaged in and supports extremist radical groups, Russia has disregarded the safety of civilians and the national security of the Southeast region, single-mindedly reaching a weapons trade agreement with the JECA Group. Our side strongly protests this, and any arms trade between JECA Group and Russia will directly violate multiple resolutions of the United Nations Security Council. The government of the beautiful country will continue to closely monitor the situation and urges Russia to stop the arms negotiations with JECA Group, to honor the public commitment not to provide or sell weapons to JECA Company. Our country's government will also continue to identify, expose, and sanction any individuals and entities that assist in the weapon transactions of JECA Company. Journalists in the audience raised their hands one after another, and one reporter asked, "May I ask, what if the JECA Group continues to engage in arms trade with Russia? If they persist in their obstinacy, we will not stand idly by and let such actions that threaten regional peace and security occur. Furthermore, we have decided that, effective immediately, we will implement a security assistance plan for the Chan country government. In the next few months, we will supply Chan country with a substantial number and variety of ammunition and weapons to help with the development of Chan country's defense industry." Kirby didn't hesitate and immediately responded, matching JECA Group's armament efforts by providing military aid to Chan country. Does the JECA Group really have ties with extremist radical groups? Do you have solid evidence? We have obtained evidence, but due to its classified nature, we are temporarily unable to disclose it. Kirby changed the topic, letting out an exasperating statement. It was a look that said, "I have evidence, but I just won't say what can you do about it." The beautiful country, with its power, is so unabashed in its attempts to frame and accuse others. In the end, Kirby slammed the table and angrily said, "I must reiterate, don't be deceived by the facade of the JECA Group. I can unequivocally say that it is an extremely dangerous and malevolent organization. Their attempt to engage in arms negotiations with Russia is a deeply unsettling message for the Southeast region. If the JECA Group aims to arm itself and provoke regional security through arms purchases, my country will not remain silent." The protest statements from the beautiful country were rapidly disseminated by journalists, and soon, responses came from all quarters. Russia immediately held a press conference to respond to the accusations from the beautiful country, with the spokesperson sneering, "Who we trade military arms with is none of the beautiful country's business. They should mind their own unclean hands and go back to sanctioning their own arms dealers. Their reckless arms dealing has caused instability and displacement in numerous countries, and they themselves can't clean that up, yet they have the audacity to dictate others' arms sale negotiations." Russia's toughness was expected as usual. This country and nation have long given the impression of being unyieldingly tough through repeated confrontations with the beautiful country. What people were actually more interested in was the JECA Group. How could a corporate company provoke such unreserved sanctions and accusations from the beautiful country? After the press conference at the White House, journalists from around the world rushed to Chan country, entering Mande City in hopes of interviewing the JECA Group. Soon after, the JECA Group also responded to everyone's request. The next day at noon, in the headquarters building of JECA Group in Mande City, Su Jie himself attended a press conference. This was Su Jie's first public appearance. His face was only known within Chan country before, but now, in front of journalists and media from all over the world, Su Jie stepped from the backstage to the front stage. It was foreseeable that after today, Su Jie's fame around the world would rise significantly. Ladies and gentlemen, regarding the statements from the beautiful country, our side completely denies them. The JECA Group has always been a company that loves peace, loves the public, and actively participates in poverty alleviation and charitable causes. That is also the purpose for our group's establishment. As Su Jie picked up the microphone, his first statement surprised many of the journalists aware of the inside story, and they looked at Su Jie with peculiar expressions. Could your JECA Group's history really be called peace-loving? What happened to the former Mande United Army? How did East Chin State come about? How did those smugglers in Mexico with firepower fiercer than drug traffickers develop? Don't say you JECA Group are unaware. The journalists below immediately raised their hands. A dense crowd. Su Jie randomly pointed at a Frenchwoman with blonde hair and blue eyes, a journalist from a French news agency. "Mr. Su, if your JECA Group is a normally operating company, why would you buy so many arms from Russia? Is the information about the arms sale negotiation false? Furthermore, JECA Group's behavior in Chan country, could it essentially be an act of division? What's your explanation for this? Finally, I want to ask, with Jekka Group's arms sale to Russia, are you merely pawns for Russia, aiming to extend its influence into the southeast region and replicate the old world tactics of grouping and manipulation that were typical of the Red Bear? A French female journalist holding a microphone fired off her questions one after another, rapidly throwing several questions at once. You sure have a lot of questions. This time is an exception. Next time, everyone is only allowed to ask one question. Su Jie picked up the microphone, looked around the room, and calmly said, "Let's address the first question first. The reason for buying arms is out of self-defense. As everyone must be aware, Chan country has been fraught with warlord conflicts for years, resulting in severe security issues. There are several incidents of violent shootings every day, and these lawless aggressors severely threaten the development of the Jekka Company. We, Jekka Group in Chan country, wish to operate peacefully and, out of necessity, we can only form a security team to ensure the safety of our employees and property. So there's no need for concern. Jekka Company is a law-abiding commercial company, and the military hardware purchases, including the fighter jets and air defense missiles, are only meant to enable the security department to defend against the destructive actions of rioters. That should be reasonable, right? Reasonable, my foot." All the journalists below rolled their eyes in unison, thinking they were being taken for fools. Which company, in dealing with thugs, equips its security with fighter jets and air defense missiles? This is no longer using a cannon to kill mosquitoes, this is using nuclear bombs. The thugs at most rob jewelry stores and banks. If they knew you were preparing to strike them with Su-30 fighter jets, they would probably cry on the spot. And you call others warlords? I see Jekka Group as the biggest warlord in Chan country. As for the second question, we in Jekka Group do not acknowledge the current Chan country government at all. Their rise to power was itself illegitimate. We do not recognize their rule. How can there be any talk of division? This country doesn't belong to them. Su Jie's smile narrowed slightly as he calmly began to explain. The journalists below knew all too well what Su Jie was referring to. The current government of Chan country, in fact, came to power through a military coup over a decade ago, subsequently dismissing 24 ministers and representatives and appointing 11 successors, including in finance, health, interior, and foreign affairs, leading to chaos and eventually taking over national administration themselves, continuing till today. Their legality has always been under question, and Su Jie's statement reflects the perspective of many local warlords in Chan country. Everyone disapproves of the current Chan country government, viewing them merely as a bunch of renegades from a military government with no right to govern them, tax them, or give them orders. As for the third question, that's even simpler. We are thousands of miles away from Russia. Although we cooperate with Russia in business, most affairs, especially geopolitical power plays like forming cliques, are things Jekka Company never gets involved in. Having said that, Su Jie noticed more and more hands raising from the audience and picked a journalist from Beautiful Country, curious about the troublesome question they might ask. The journalist from CNN, as expected by Su Jie, opened with a big one. "Mr. Su, I respect the Jekka Company you lead and its legal business activities. However, the Chan country government has now issued a statement claiming it will expel Jekka Company. The 8-Nation Group has also spoken out, along with the United Nations resolution, claiming that Jekka Group's presence will harm regional peace. Has Jekka Group considered moving, perhaps to other countries or regions such as the capitalist countries like Beautiful Country, and even listing on Nasdaq to ease the tensions between the parties?" "Move house." Su Jie scoffed, "What a joke," thinking he would leave his long-established base just like that. Did Su Jie not understand the intentions of Beautiful Country? There's no way they would let go of Jekka Group's lucrative opportunity. The so-called relocation of Jekka Group was nothing but an attempt to shake the resolve of Jekka Group to make a final stand, disconnect Jekka Group from the mass base of East Chin State, and avoid getting mired in the quagmire of public security wars, a matter where the troops of the Beautiful Country in the Middle East have a substantial say. I have already stated before that we at Jekka Group do not recognize the legitimacy of the Chan country government, and as for the so-called 8-Nation Group, they are overreaching. We are a company of Chan country, not a company of their countries. United Nations resolutions or whatever. I have absolutely not heard anything about them unless you can make Russia's veto power ineffective. Su Jie was indifferent. The United Nations and all that. Russia had just entered into a military sales partnership with JECA Company, so it was naturally unlikely to cooperate with the actions of the beautiful country. As long as the beautiful country approves it, Russia will certainly cast a dissenting vote. Furthermore, we at JECA Group will never list ourselves in a country like the beautiful country. Su Jie finally hammered the point home. Listing in the beautiful country would mean facing one greedy capitalist after another, as if the wolves and leopards couldn't reach enough, personally delivering themselves to their mouths. Perhaps by then Su Jie might not even be able to hold on to more than 20% of the shares. Su Jie had no intention of playing business games with those capitalists. A CNN reporter was very displeased upon hearing this and picked up the microphone to continue questioning, only to be immediately grabbed by the arm by JECA security and dragged out of the press conference like a dead pig. One question per person. You need to follow the rules, Su Jie said indifferently, which made the other reporters behave. He then called on a journalist from Asahi News of Japan, a stern-faced beauty with long black hair who picked up the microphone and asked, Mr. Su, our Prime Minister issued a statement not long ago, stating that to address the heated situation in certain areas of Chan country, the pace of troop deployments in Chan country will be accelerated. Simultaneously, the president of Chan also made a statement, claiming to deploy more military forces along the line of Jinlao Mountain, Wu River, and Nongguan City within G State to counter the threat of JECA Group. Should a conflict erupt between the Chan country government army and JECA Group, according to the security agreement between Japan and Chan country, our military forces will also participate in the battle. I would like to ask, JECA Company, by recklessly purchasing large amounts of arms without regard for international morality and norms, are you trying to challenge the Chan country government? Challenge our great Japan? Do you really dare to start a war with us? This journalist from Japan was clearly well prepared and directly brought up the topic of war. Towards the end, she even held her chin up proudly. Su Jie laughed, visibly amused. Ha ha. Rather than asking whether I dare to go to war, it's more accurate to say that I'd relish the opportunity. If your soldiers from Japan dare step onto the lands of JECA Group, our JECA security will automatically treat them as rioters. By the way, Miss Journalist, you might not be aware, but JECA Group started by breeding poison insects, and we certainly have considerable experience in crushing those overconfident, arrogant little bugs. You! The journalist from Japan flushed with anger. Frequently engaging with words, she could easily catch the subtext in Su Jie's mockery of her country. Mr. Su, you are underestimating the world's fourth-largest economy, the giant of Asia. The journalist from Japan raised her voice, glaring at Su Jie with a face full of outrage, and exclaimed, Once the war begins, it won't be long before the doom of JECA Group arrives. I believe JECA Company should maintain a more open attitude, not be so aggressive locally, or intimidate militarily by upgrading and expanding armaments, and should avoid damaging the national interests of Chan country and Japan for your own selfish desires. Destruction isn't defined by you. JECA Group has never feared competition, whether in business or the military conflicts you speak of. Companies that fear competition don't last long, and JECA Group couldn't possibly have gotten to this point step by step. So, if your threats involve talking with bullets and blood using such methods for competition, then let me also tell you and the country behind you, when friends come, we have fine wine, when wolves come, we have shotguns. Su Jie was smiling, but his words carried a full intent of decisiveness, making many reporters break out in a cold sweat. When the assembly absorbed his words, Su Jie took the microphone, looked at the slightly pale-faced female journalist, and said coldly, Finally, let me leave you with a word. Do not say that I did not warn you. Daily News. JECA Group claims that arms procurement with Mao Bear country will proceed as normal and will be used in foreign wars. Conclusion. A terrifying warmonger is showing a devilish smile. New York Daily. Private enterprises getting involved in arms trade poses a great danger to the safety of the local population. Mao Bear country must immediately stop its related arms exports and stop assisting in the tyranny. Wall Street Journal. Bloated wealth brings bloated desires. The head of JECA Group, Su Jie, speaks boldly, saying if business competition does not yield results, then they would resort to force to gain benefits. The next morning, fresh newspapers had put Su Jie on their front pages, mostly with negative headlines. These news articles had long departed from basic professional ethics, disregarding facts and wantonly slinging mud. It wasn't just in the newspapers. On the radio, television, and online, various forms of abuse and twisted interpretations of JECA Group were being synchronized. Through a variety of channels, they spared no effort in smearing to better provoke emotions. Because only in this way could the subsequent military actions by the Eight-Nation Group better brand themselves as the force of justice. A similar setup had been adeptly employed by Western media for some time. The battle for public opinion in modern society is also very important. They first wanted to isolate JECA Group so as to conveniently take action. These overwhelming news articles ranged from the statements made by Su Jie of JECA Group to the recent explosive posts by the Eight-Nation Group. The heated verbal exchanges between the two sides immediately sparked lively discussions among the observant masses. Damn, I just found out that JECA Group is so powerful, having bought $7 billion worth of fighter jets and missiles. I used to think they were just selling shampoo. If you understand the development history of JECA Group, you'd know that they cannot be regarded as an ordinary company. In the East Chin State region of Chan Country, it can be said that JECA Group actually plays the role of the local government, a small country disguised as a company. Oh my God, the real owner behind JECA Group turns out to be Chinese, and so young too. That fortune must be enough to make it onto the Forbes billionaires list, right? The person above, at most that's a small warlord. Here is the information I've collected from both public and covert channels to reveal a bit about JECA Group and its behind-the-scenes player, Su Jie. According to publicly disclosed information, Su Jie owns JECA Group and also Tianyuan Home, the leading enterprise in Hua Country's high-end home market. There's also Mu Hua Food Company, with pig breeding exceeding 15 million, ranking in the top 5 of pig breeding enterprises in Hua Country. Besides, there are numerous subsidiary companies. A preliminary estimate puts Su Jie's personal net worth definitely in the top 10 of the global Forbes billionaires list. You guys have got the wrong idea. Isn't it time to discuss how rich someone is? I think Su Jie's remarks at the press conference are clearly gearing up for a fight. This is courting death. The Chan Country government army has a force of 300,000 troops, plus the rotation of troops from Japan. JECA Group can't possibly win the fight. Once a war starts, they will collapse instantly. A man's pride will be his downfall, and now the Eight-Nation Group has publicly declared that they will take measures against JECA, including but not limited to military action. Even if JECA Group bought fighter jets and air defense missiles, so what? Can those rookies use them? Just another Captain Ka in real life, young and foolish, thinking he can stand against heaven, earth, and the air, not realizing he's already half buried in the ground. Beautiful country isn't wrong. JECA Group is indeed an extreme radical organization. Otherwise, how could they buy so much military hardware? All that talk about suppressing rioters, that amount of firepower is overkill for a warlord. So, I support the just sanctions by beautiful country to eliminate the cancer of JECA Group that is festering in Southeast Asia and return peace and prosperity to the region. I guess this Su Jie is all bark and no bite. He wouldn't dare instigate a military conflict. Otherwise, under the Sakurachan Mutual Defense Treaty, Japan could send troops legitimately and flatten his little JECA Group. Long live our great Sakura Empire. Even though I'm not a fan of war, bullying a little warlord should be no problem for our Japan Self-Defense Force. I wish you victory and safe return. Transport. I'm from Hokkaido. My husband Oda-san has gone to Chan Country. Oda-san told me that if he distinguishes himself in Chan Country, the reward will be very generous. When he returns, we'll settle down and buy a house in Tokyo, becoming Tokyo people. These overseas netizens kept discussing, mostly mocking and pessimistic about Su Jie's remarks. And those who tried to speak up for JECA Group criticizing the hegemonism of the Eight-Nation Group, were ruthlessly limited and hidden. After all, these news media and social platforms are completely controlled by capital, and any discourse unfavorable to them would naturally be swept away. The freedom of speech extolled by Western social media should not be taken seriously. However, in Hua country, the public opinion was the complete opposite. On social media platforms like Douyin, Manshou, Little Broken Station, Weibo, and Baihu, people were leaving comments and discussing. Big Pisho Beast. Holy shit, we actually have such a badass in our country. Awesome, bro. World so big, earn money to see, having money and guns, damn, the young people nowadays really know how to play. Huh? Legion Record Officer. He's the real winner in life, carving out his own territory for development. Those capitalists back home are so weak in comparison. Mo Rankinghua. It's not even on the same level. Jeka Group occupies a territory of 70,000 square kilometers in East Chin State. Domestic capitalists can't even compare. Not to mention in terms of financial power, they're no match for Jeka Group. Romantic to death. A net worth of hundreds of billions of US dollars. Wow, I declare, from now on, Su Jie is my idol. Chow Chow Lu Xie certified loyalist. I even want to go travel to East Chin State now. Nightmare Park there is super popular recently, but the country just issued a notice saying that recently the security situation in Chan country is severe and complex, with a high risk to personal safety. Otherwise, I would have already bought a plane ticket and set off. Fish guarding the cat. Haha, it can't really be about starting a war with Japan, can it? If so, I'm all hands and feet in favor. Smash them hard for me. You're Miao Pi Guava, right? If it's about fighting Japan, then do we still need more troops? I've been a soldier. I can go support you guys for free. Fighting Japan has been my dream since I was a kid. Just drink AD calcium, haha. I also want to fight Japan at Jeka Group. When will the registration channel open? Just give me some food and a gun. Tenoji Shinoku. You guys upstairs. Do you really think war is a child's play? Once you actually get on the battlefield and the fighting starts, you'd probably be scared to piss yourself. It's different from games. You can restart a game, but on the battlefield, you have only one life. Who doesn't love big orange cats? I guess it won't really come to fighting. Objectively speaking, the power difference between the two sides is too large. If a real conflict happens, they'd be steamrolled by Chan country and Japan. Cotton hands who can't play guitar. Being able to talk tough is already awesome, okay, but we need to be rational about war. We've gotten this territory with difficulty. Let's not just spit it out. These Hua country netizens support Su Jie even more because his identity gives them a sense of belonging. After all, it's Chan country that occupies the territory, and Chan country has not been short of nuisances over the years. All kinds of scam parks have popped up everywhere, leading most Hua country people to have an extremely poor opinion of Chan country. Su Jie carving out territory in Chan country has only led to encouragement. Moreover, at the press conference, the video of Su Jie fiercely rebuking the Japanese female reporter also received tens of millions of likes on various major video platforms. Seeing Japan's misfortune is always a delight to netizens, as they are historic enemies of Japan. Su Jie's tough response naturally drew cheers. Of course, more netizens just treated it as a spectacle. After all, they think, with Chan country's 230,000 active troops plus the help from Japan, how could Jeka Group dare to start a war? Oh, responding to Jeka Group, right after Jeka Group's press conference ended, the government of Chan country immediately jumped out and wrote a 1,000-word-long article vehemently criticizing Jeka Group. Jeka Group, a cancer harming the people of East Chin State. As the legitimate government of Chan country, we have the right to demand that Jeka Company immediately stop its military expansion and withdraw from East Chin State early. Otherwise, faced with this military threat, we, the authorities of Chan country, will absolutely not stand by idly. We, Chan country, announce that starting from September 7th, we will officially move 30,000 troops to the area around Jibong Jinlao Mountain, mobilize the 19th Division, 8th Division, 2nd Armored Division, and establish a Northern Regional Command. The news was from an Global Times interview with the president of Chan. On the day the news was released, the foreign minister of Chan country began a series of intensive visits to the other countries of the Eight-Nation Group. Meanwhile, a large number of troops began to be stationed near the Jibang-Jinlao mountain area, adjacent to East Chin State. During its visit to Chan Country, members of the Eight Nation Group came forward to support Chan Country's actions. Recently, we have noticed that the Chan Country government's dissatisfaction with the Jekka Group is not only limited to Jekka Group's disregard for the law and their reckless behavior, but their covetous eyes on more territories of Chan Country still exist. Japan has always firmly supported the legitimate claims of the Chan Country government and decided to upgrade military cooperation with Chan Country again, hastening the deployment and training of soldiers in Chan Country to respond to the substantial threat posed by Jekka Group in the northeast part of Chan Country. In response to the repeated provocations by the Jekka Group, Beautiful Country has formally issued a resolution that if Jekka Group continues to engage in arms trade with Russia, ignoring the warnings from Chan Country, and maintaining such a dangerous military expansion, Beautiful Country will not stand idly by. I declare that in order not to let Chan Country fall under the strategic shadow of Jekka Group's expansion, becoming a possession of Jekka Group, I will provide substantial material and financial aid to Chan Country, and at the same time, I will call upon the entire West to further sanction Jekka Group, placing them on the dangerous organizations list. It is hard to imagine that in the 21st century, there is still an organization like Jekka Group that adheres to World War II thinking, so greedily fond of land, population, and resources, attempting to expand its territory by creating regional chaos as an excuse. Therefore, at the invitation of the Chan Country authorities, Siam will provide corresponding logistical support to Chan Country, and I officially announce that all products from Jekka Company are banned from entering our country. Temasek will strengthen its Farsi escort cooperation with the Eight Nation Group in Mangjia Bay, dispatching an additional formidable frigate to restrict the navigation of Jekka Company's transport ships in the region, as a retaliation against Jekka Group's military intimidation. Voices of support and backing subsequently emerged from the Eight Nation Group, creating a tense sense of a looming stormy weather. Jekka Group also responded to these accusations and sanctions with concrete actions, sending multiple troops majestically toward the Jibang-Jinlao mountain region, bordering the Chan Country government. They also gave interviews to major neutral parties, gravely protesting the Eight Nation Group's sanctions. Jekka Group has repeatedly stated that its dealings with Russia are normal commercial trades. In view of the false accusations of the Eight Nation Group, we urge Chan Country not to act as Beautiful Country's pawn, stirring up trouble in sensitive areas like Mangjia Bay. We also reiterate, if it is thought that by joint provocations and intimidation from Chan Country and Japan, fabricating stories of thieves crying thief and sanctioning the export of Jekka Group's products, these tactics will not intimidate us. Meanwhile, to respond to the escalating regional situation, the Security Department of Jekka Group will deploy the 1st and 2nd Brigades to the southern Jinlao mountain area to protect Jekka employees from external threats and resolutely safeguard the life and property safety of Jekka employees. Jekka Group's response was very tough, not giving in at all, but instead substantially mobilizing the army. 15,000 soldiers arrived at the Jinlao mountain, bordering the Chan Country government, where both sides' armies began to confront each other across the mountains. The strong response from the Jekka Group made Chan Country seem like a powder keg at that moment, ready to explode at the slightest spark. In this tense situation, Japan frequently made major moves. In just half a month, it swiftly deployed the 13th Brigade of the Ground Self-Defense Force and the 1st Airborne Regiment to Chan Country. The Aviation Mixed Group also occupied major airports controlled by the Chan Country Government Army, constantly conducting training exercises everywhere. Warplanes continuously flew over East Chin State, sometimes even intentionally lowering their flight altitude to skim the ground, provocatively. On the ground, Japan was not to be outdone, joining forces with the Chan Country Government Army to engage in joint military exercises in Jinlao Mountain. With artillery booming ceaselessly, day and night, some shells even fell within the territory of East Chin State. When held accountable, the opposing side would lightly claim it was a misfire. The shells deviated from their intended trajectories due to strong winds. In less than a month, the tension in the Chan Country region reached a precarious level. The Eight Nation Group further conducted mutual state visits, held leadership summits, and signed several defense agreements with each other. continuously supplying military ammunition to both the Chan country government and Japan, their intention to contain and strike at Jeka Group unspoken yet evident. Chan country, East Chin State. In a village near Ji State, Su Jie was here visiting some displaced disaster victims. Fellow countrymen, rest assured, Jeka Group will definitely stand up for you. If you have any difficulties now, speak up, and I will solve them immediately, Su Jie said. Su Jie stood in front of an elderly farmer, holding the latter's rough and calloused palms in his hands. Mr. Su, thank you so much. Jeka Group has treated us well with proper arrangements for tents and food. We don't have any difficulties now, the old farmer said, excited and nervous as he shook Su Jie's hand. It was his first time shaking hands with such a significant figure, and he was so nervous his speech quivered. Behind the old farmer was a house that had been toppled by practice artillery shells from Japan. The shells had exploded dozens of meters away, severely injuring several of his family members who were still receiving treatment in the hospital. Jeka Group must not let those scoundrels get away with this. Exactly. Some people even came to persuade me to move south to Ji State. Bah, what kind of life did I have before? It was Jeka Group that made my life better. I would have to be crazy to go there and be exploited by them. If Jeka Group needs to enlist soldiers, both my second and third sons are over 18, and they're ready to serve in the army and fight for Jeka Group. Down with Japan. Long live Jeka Group. Many other villagers who had gathered around were brimming with righteous indignation. They had been living a poor life under the rule of other warlords in East Chin State, with no job security, bare survival wages, frequent arbitrary exploitation and taxation, and no avenue for redress when wronged. After Jeka Group arrived, just the act of raising wages had won countless hearts. The local wages increased by 2 to 3 or even 4 times, and, in addition to tax reductions, many destitute families and orphans received support. With Jeka Group's investment in various civil infrastructure industries, such as establishing schools for free education, constructing hospitals that dramatically reduced medical costs or even offered free treatment to the needy, and paving roads to ease travel, it significantly improved lives. The greatest measure was Jeka Group redistributing the land taken from corrupt officials and warlords to the landless poor, granting many impoverished citizens their own land. Plus, Jeka Group's massive recruitment of employees, high welfare, high remuneration, and the distribution of profits from breeding insects were all visible benefits to the public. As the saying goes, without comparison, there is no harm felt. Having experienced the administration of Jeka Group, people no longer wanted to return to their former lives. Now, those who wanted to force Jeka Company to withdraw from East Chin State and destroy it essentially wished to revert them to those impoverished, miserable days. This naturally led to widespread opposition and an intense dislike towards the Chan country government and Japan. Su Jie turned around, faced the indignant villagers and raised his fist, saying, "I have heard all your demands, and I once again assure you that I will not tolerate anyone who harms Jeka Group. I will ensure that we obtain justice, righteousness, and a voice for everyone." Clap, clap, clap. Applause immediately filled the air as the villagers chanted the name of Jeka Group. The accompanying official photographer and reporters clicked their cameras, capturing these valuable moments. As Su Jie left the village and got into the car, he turned to Lu Yingying and smiled, saying, "See that? The will of the people can be utilized." Lu Yingying, wrapping her arms around Su Jie's, nodded and said, "With the support of these people, our chances of winning are even higher. How is the military preparation going now?" Su Jie rolled down the car window, looked at the verdant fields outside, and seemed to gaze toward Jinlao Mountain, sensing the tense atmosphere there. "Currently, we have assembled 8 brigades, one of which is a heavy composite brigade equipped mainly with various armored vehicles and tanks, including 88 tanks, 112 infantry fighting vehicles, 12 40-barrel 122mm rocket artillery, 18 122mm self-propelled howitzers, and corresponding anti-aircraft and engineer battalions, totaling 9,800 personnel per brigade. The other 7 brigades consist of 2 mechanized brigades and 5 mountain brigades, primarily made up of light armor and infantry, which form our major combat forces. In these 8 brigades, totaling over 60,000 troops, we also have second-class and third-class super soldiers serving as scouts and battlefield spearheads, numbering 320 in total. Furthermore, we have established an artillery regiment and an aviation brigade, which includes 68 helicopters, covering transport helicopters, general support helicopters, medical rescue helicopters, armed helicopters, and a drone squadron. Lastly, there is your direct command unit, the Steel Camp, responsible only to you, consisting of 92 personnel, all first-class super soldiers from Jekka Security, the elite unit. In addition to these regular soldiers, we also have reserve militias serving as reserves, who are trained during their spare time and, although they obviously cannot compare in combat prowess to regular soldiers, can be called upon to the battlefield if necessary. Without hesitation and without needing to consult any data, Lu Yingying accurately recounted these details and the military situation, having diligently managed Jekka Group's affairs. Su Jie stroked his chin. The population of East Qin State had reached 3 million today, originally just around 2,700,000 or 800,000. The people from other areas of Chan country, hearing of the life here, chose to migrate, increasing the population to 3 million. 3 million people, 60,000 combat troops, still adhering to the initial ratio Su Jie had set. 1 soldier for every 50 citizens. This ratio was just right, neither affecting the production and life under the rule of Jekka Group nor compromising the formidable combat power. It wasn't that they couldn't recruit more soldiers. Jekka Security offered very attractive conditions, and entering it required selection of the best candidates. But there was no necessity with the current situation. If 60,000 regular soldiers couldn't hold, recruiting new recruits to throw into battle to fill the lines would be useless. How about the military deployment on Chan country government side and Japan? Have all their stationed soldiers arrived? Su Jie asked again. He had also been preparing for war these days. The thousand-hand centipede had been digging everywhere underground, even more diligent than a mole. After Chan country accepted the qualifications of the 8-nation group, they have also been frantically recruiting soldiers during this period, refilling the slots of soldiers who were previously drawing pay without serving, and they have been significantly bolstered by the 8-nation group with many heavy weapons. Currently, according to the intelligence we hold, the combined forces of Chan country's army, navy, and air force total 350,000 soldiers. Their main equipment includes 600 various types of main battle tanks, armored vehicles more than 1,000 units, 150 self-propelled artillery, and over 800 towed artillery. They have about 300 aircraft, including 100 fighter jets, more than 120 helicopters, 25 transport planes, and more than 90 trainer aircraft. Although these heavy weapons are somewhat outdated models, the sheer numbers still represent a hugely terrifying force. Meanwhile, Japan's soldiers have already all arrived in Chan country, all stationed in Jibang territory, amounting to about 8,000 soldiers. Together with the soldiers Chan country has deployed at Jibang Jinlao Mountain. The soldiers now facing us on the Jinlao Mountain front line amount to a whopping 80,000. Lu Yingying was familiar with the enemy's situation as if she had counted it herself. Many were exposed by foreign media themselves. It was unclear if there was any exaggeration. From the paper strength, Chan country's armament situation was much stronger than Jekka Group. Especially in terms of heavy weapons, it was nearly 10 times that of Jekka Group, completely dominating the skies over Jekka Group. If it weren't for the fact that the Chan country government needed many forces to defend against other directions' warlords, it wouldn't be possible to bring them all up. Even if these soldiers' training was questionable, they could still pose a huge pressure on Jekka Group. That's quite a lot of heavy firepower. We need to take some of them out first. Su Jie narrowed his eyes, a cold light flickering within. These devices posed a huge threat to Jekka Group. Ah, are we going to fire the first shot? Lu Yingying was startled. She detected this intention from Su Jie's tone, indicating a proactive approach. Rather than letting the enemy fully prepare and draw the battlefield into East Qin State, I'd rather strike first. Su Jie touched Lu Yingying's pretty face and said lightly, "Notify all, from today on, the entire territory will progressively enter a wartime state. Close the domestic airspace. Mobilize all regular military forces and special forces. initiate first-level combat readiness, and utilize all bomb shelters and strategic logistical warehouses. Are we directly committing aggression? In the international community, that might be. Lu Yingying's heart thumped rapidly, although forewarned, still tense upon hearing Su Jie's war commands. Su Jie tapped Lu Yingying's head, correcting her erroneous terminology. What aggression? This is called liberation, liberating the vast masses of oppressed people. You too must maintain this statement externally. Lu Yingying, holding her head, looked at Su Jie with great admiration. Simply changing a word made the perception completely elevated. Then, the reason for starting the war. Leave that to me. Have steel camp prepared. First give those Japanese soldiers who came all the way to Chan country and have constantly been challenging us recently a grand welcoming gift. Su Jie looked at the maps spread out before him, his lips curling into a cold smile. Oh! 3 days later, October 16th. On this day, Jekka Group announced that they would hold an anti-violence exercise near Jinlao Mountain to increase their measures and experience in dealing with violent elements. For this, participants in the exercise included Jekka Group's only heavy composite brigade, an air brigade, 3 mountain brigades with over 100 tanks, countless light and heavy weapons, and 30,000 soldiers entering the exercise area. The news being released immediately made the outside world judge Jekka Group's move as a reaction forced by the threats from Chan country and Japan. Many professional military commentators definitively stated, Jekka Group's such ostentatious exercise is merely a bluff, warning Chan country and Japan not to provoke them, actually revealing their own weakness. Otherwise, why make such a big fuss? If they were truly strong, they could completely ignore the provocations. However, on the next day, the 17th, Jekka Group officially suddenly issued a statement. At 11 a.m. today, one of our soldiers participating in the exercises, Lu Qiufei, disappeared. After meticulous investigation, it was discovered that the soldier disappeared near Wuha military camp where Japanese soldiers are stationed. We demand immediate access to the camp for a search, and the Japanese soldiers must cooperate with our work. The appearance of this declaration immediately caused a huge stir worldwide, especially in East Asia, awakening long-dormant memories. Boom! In Yang City, the highest-ranking officer of the Chan country's Japanese army, Major General Yoshimura Yuichi, slammed his palm onto the table, eyeing the provocative statement issued by the Jekka Group. The all-too-familiar words instantly enraged Yoshimura Yuichi. How dare they make such a statement? This is a provocation against us, against the entire Great Japan Empire. Spittle flying from his mouth, Yoshimura Yuichi was echoed by a group of angry staff officers beneath him, who waved their fists and shouted angrily, General, we must retaliate. Let the artillery accidentally fire a few more shells over there. Send the fighter jets loaded with bombs to patrol their airspace and let them know that one can eat indiscriminately. But words must not be spoken carelessly. It seems they really have no other options left and can only show off their verbal skills. Once we defeat them and capture that Su Jie, we'll make him face the consequences of his reckless words. These staff officers and military officers were the elite of the Japan Army, not ordinary citizens confused by distorted history. They knew that the Jekka Group statement was mocking Japan. Could it be? Might the Jekka Group actually intend to use this as an excuse to launch an attack on us? Suddenly, a staff officer whispered. The command room fell silent at once, all eyes turning to look in that direction, then unanimously shaking their heads. Impossible, they don't have the guts. They are barely able to resist us in their defensive positions. How could they dare to strike first? That would be suicidal. Mr. Antian, you worry too much. The Jekka Group is already at a disadvantage in international public opinion. They can't possibly launch an offensive and plunge themselves into an extremely unfavorable media atmosphere. After a brief silence, these officers immediately began discussing all at once, eventually concluding that the chance of the Jekka Group taking the initiative to launch an attack was extremely slim. Tighten security among the troops below, though I don't believe they will dare to attack. It's better to be cautious, Yoshimura Yuichi said with a wave of his hand, then commanded someone to go down with additional orders. Also, immediately send a telegram to notify the media. Tell the Jeka group not to be delusional. We haven't seen any of their soldiers, and we certainly won't allow them to enter our military camps for an inspection. Yes, sir. The group of staff officers stood up and saluted, then walked out of the command room to make arrangements. Soon, a press release issued in the name of the Japan Army garrison was freshly baked. We, the Japan Army, have no knowledge or involvement concerning the Jeka group's sophistry about missing soldiers. We also absolutely forbid any Jeka group personnel from entering our military bases. Hereby, we advise the Jeka group to refrain from any fantasies of crossing the border, instigating border conflicts, and pushing themselves to the brink of disaster. This news release, as a response to the Jeka group, immediately stirred up a heated debate. Unusually, the Jeka group remained silent instead of responding right away. The training field. At dusk, the Jeka Security 1st Brigade, the only heavy mixed brigade, was in the midst of training exercises when the soldiers suddenly received a command to assemble. Soon after, they saw a brigade officer carrying a signed military order walking over. Everyone, attention! Swish! The soldiers, with their hands behind their backs, stood straight and tall, despite being covered in the dust from the exercises, radiating high spirits and morale. Half an hour ago, General Su, the highest commander of the war zone, issued a war order against the Chan country and Japan Army garrisons. Our target is no longer the training field but the enemy's military camp. The mission requires a direct, lightning-fast assault, crossing the Baoji River by tomorrow morning, and as the first assault armored group, attacking the southern part of the Chan country forces at Jinlao Mountain. Note, this is not an exercise, this is not an exercise. With a formidable glance, the brigade officer, clutching the red-sealed military documents, roared, "Any questions? Anyone who wants to back out?" None. A tsunami-like roar ensued, every soldier's eyes burning with fervor and their faces set with determination. Good. Carry out the mission. Everyone, put on your identification armbands and move out. At the command, the infantrymen who were scheduled to train began embarking on the infantry fighting vehicles wearing their equipment. Tanks rumbled into life, billowing out white smoke. Dozens of tons of steel monsters roared, and the formidable armored and transport vehicle convoy immediately set off toward the border. A similar scene took place not only with the 1st Heavy Mixed Brigade but also with the 3rd Mountain Brigade, the 6th Mountain Brigade, and the 7th Mountain Brigade. All received the same war order, switching from exercise to war and executing different combat missions. 4 in the morning, East Chin State, Jeka Security 1st Aviation Brigade Base. The airport was ablaze with lights. The rotors of the Mi-8 helicopters began to rapidly spin, with strong winds sweeping across the land, making it difficult for people to keep their eyes open. Our mission is divided into 2 parts. The 1st platoon will follow me in assaulting the Japan Army's Wuha military camp and shatter the enemy there, detonating their strategic warehouse. The 2nd platoon will head toward the Nongguan City route, destroying the military airfield and annihilating those fighter jets. Don't let a single one take off. Understood. I must emphasize that this mission is of utmost importance. General Su trusts us with this heavy responsibility. Do you all have the confidence to complete the mission given to us by General Su? Commanding the steel camp was Miao Luan, wearing heavy battle armor. His gaze, fierce and chilling, was enough to freeze the soul. Before Miao Luan stood an entire line of first-class super soldiers, each clad in heavy armor and carrying Gatling guns and large-caliber anti-aircraft machine guns. First battle, use me, with me, victory is assured. The thunderous voice rose, each first-class super soldier had a tiger-like momentum. Although there weren't many of them, less than 100, they exuded a terrifying aura like a steel torrent, causing the logistical personnel and the pilots at the nearby airport to tremble with fear down to their hands and feet. When they regained their senses and looked at Jeka Group's absolute trump card, their eyes filled with immense admiration and respect. All personnel, board the aircraft, execute the Supreme Commander's orders, and destroy any enemy in our way. Miao Luan looked around, picked up the heavy 14.5mm anti-aircraft machine gun at his feet, closed the bulletproof glass mask, and strode towards a Mi-8 helicopter. Behind him, the metal-clad warriors stepped forward in an orderly fashion, boarding the helicopters one by one. The logistical staff were conducting the final checks. When everything was ready, they waved the little yellow flags to notify the control tower that all preparations were complete. Upon receiving the instructions, the Mi-8 helicopter's propellers rotated at maximum power. Under the control of the pilots, they slowly lifted off the ground and hovered. Minutes later, after joining the escorting armed helicopters, this massive air assault squadron flew at ultra-low altitude under cover of darkness, heading straight towards the location of the Japanese forces. The curvature of Planet Blue Star affected the radar coverage, limiting the height range it could scan. Moreover, low-altitude flight using terrain, trees, buildings, and other obstacles to block radar signals made it difficult for radars to detect helicopters flying at ultra-low altitudes. Even if Chan Country's radars were operating, they would hardly be able to capture this air assault squadron. Dawn. The first ray of light shone down, and the bright sunlight fell on the Wuha military camp of Japan. The sentinel Ikaya Haiku, who was on watch in the latter part of the night, stretched and mumbled, "I wonder if today's meal includes rice balls and miso soup. Always eating these local foods is going to ruin my stomach someday." "Haha, you're such a pampered guy. We're here to fight a war, and you're expecting gourmet meals." Nakazawa Ichiro, a veteran who had served in peacekeeping, smacked him on the back of the head, wiped his rifle, and chided him. Ikaya Haiku shook his head, nonchalantly saying, "What war? At most we'll do an armed parade. That Jeka group will probably surrender under threat in the end. For all we know. I want to go back home sooner. This place is unbearably hot, with so many bugs. I never want to come back here in my life." Just thinking about the training in the mountains made Ikaya Haiku shudder. That had been the most painful training of his life, even worse than when he was a new recruit. There were all kinds of mosquitoes everywhere, tormenting him severely. "That's true, but..." Nakazawa Ichiro stopped mid-sentence and suddenly paused. His ears twitched, and he became alert, looking around. What's wrong? While Ikaya Haiku was still puzzled, he suddenly heard some strange noises as well. Buzz, 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 buzz. It sounded like countless massive fan blades stirring a fierce wind. The noise was coming from the northwest, and it was getting louder. When Ikaya Haiku looked toward the direction of the sound, he saw a squadron of helicopters rushing in at ultra-low altitude in the light of the rising sun. The strong winds from their propellers made the nearby grass and trees undulate wildly like waves, and the cold steel bodies had an intimidating air that created a sense of dread. What? Nonsense, this. Could it be the enemy? Ikaya Haiku's pupils constricted violently. He thought he had vaguely seen the emblem of Jeka Group on the sides of those helicopters, but his instincts and fear made him refuse to believe this fact. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Nakazawa Ichiro's face turned pale. Upon seeing the massive air assault squadron, he realized that things were terribly wrong. He went to notify others immediately, but by then it was too late. The helicopters were incredibly fast. They timed their entry with the dawn, giving the Japanese soldiers inside the camp no time to respond or assemble. The escorting armed helicopters opened their rocket pods, and 80mm caliber air-to-ground rockets burst out from both sides of the helicopters. Under Ikaya Haiku's stunned gaze, they hit various critical points throughout the camp. Boom! 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 The explosions echoed far and wide, striking fuel depots, anti-aircraft guns, communication stations, barracks, and warehouses with volleys of rocket fire. Many Japanese soldiers were still asleep, confusingly torn apart by the blasts. But dying this way was perhaps a mercy for them, as at least they didn't feel the pain. Many more soldiers were wounded by the rocket fire. Some soldiers had limbs thrown dozens of meters away, crawling on the ground, desperately searching for their own body parts. Some soldiers had their intestines spilling out and could only try to stuff their protruding insides back into their stomachs. crying out in hopeless agony that made one's scalp tingle. Some soldiers were set ablaze by the fire, turning into human torches, screaming and running around, setting more fire spots alight. In the chaos of the military camp, many Mi-8 helicopters took the opportunity to airdrop everywhere. The helicopter doors opened, and Miao Luan looked down at the camp that plunged into chaos with cold eyes. Without hesitation, he grabbed the rope and rapidly rappelled down. When he was still 5 or 6 meters above ground, he leaped forward and landed upright on the ground with a thud. Boom! Like Miao Luan, one after another, the metal behemoths hit the ground, stood up slowly, and with machine guns in hand, delivered a rain of bullets from Jeka Group to the Japanese soldiers.